Chapter 1738. Chu Yang's slightly squinted eyes suddenly opened. His eyes shone brightly as he sighed softly. Next to him, the man in black on the left asked anxiously, "How is it? Can it be cured?" Chu Yang breathed a sigh of relief and said, "Alas, there's always a way out of this. This patient, why doesn't he cherish his body?" The man in black on the left who had been talking said, "What do you mean?" Chu Yang said, "Speaking of which, this patient's body is quite good. His original family background should be very good. I believe that even in this Wuxia city he must belong to the rich. It's just that, because of the rich environment he developed this bad habit. He should have lost his virginity when he was very young. According to the pulse, when he lost his virginity, I'm afraid he was not more than 13 years old." Chu Yang said with confidence. "You can also tell this?" The man in black said suspiciously. Then he turned his head and asked, "Is it like this?" This time he asked the patient. The patient sighed and said, "The divine doctor is very accurate. Yes, I was really young and didn't know how to control myself. I remember that the first time I came into contact with a woman was after my 12th birthday." Alas, the man in black on the left suddenly turned his head and looked at Chu Yang. His eyes showed a trace of joy. Such a situation could be seen from the pulse. The level of this doctor was already beyond words. Because you didn't know how to control yourself when you were young and your family background was good, you must have come into contact with a lot of women. The more you wanted, the more you wanted. The young man was intoxicated for the first time and was very obsessed with these things between men and women. How could you last? Probably at the age of 27 or 28 you felt powerless? This time without waiting for the question. The patient nodded first. From the age of 27 or 28, you began to take medicine. You must have eaten a lot of good things, but the more you nourished, the weaker you became. Finally, at the age of 30, you completely couldn't. Am I right? Yes. The divine doctor is really insightful. Everything was as if he had seen it with his own eyes. Then, your family must have encountered a sudden change and become penniless. Until now you are still poor, aren't you? And? That's true. The patient answered, his eyes revealing a look of amazement as if he had seen an immortal. With just 2 fingers he was able to deduce the fate of his entire life so accurately? Was he still a doctor? It was as if he could get his fortune told. As long as he reached out and placed his hand on her wrist, he would be rolling in money. The man in black on the left was also delighted. He said, "Since we already know the condition, can it be treated or not?" Chu Yang smiled and said, "Since we know where the source of the disease is, we can naturally treat it. Speaking of which, his type isn't very complicated. 2 purple cloud coins will do." "You want money now? Once you get the money you'll be cured. I gave you money but you're sick." The black-clothed man looked at Chu Yang. Chu Yang had a warm smile on his face. He raised his head and met the man's gaze, not retreating even half a step. "Good. As long as the disease can be cured." The man in black turned his wrist, and 2 purple crystal coins appeared in his palm. As soon as he took it out, the whole room was filled with a purple luster. Clang, clang. The black-clothed man lifted his thumb skillfully. The 2 purple cloud coins were thrown on the table and spun around. As they spun, they emitted a fluorescent purple light under the illumination of the oil lamp. It was as if all the purple clouds in the sky had landed in this small room at this moment. Chu Yang's eyes flickered when he saw the man lifting the coins with his thumb. Then he focused his attention on the purple cloud coins. This was the first time he saw the legendary purple cloud coins. It seemed that even his eyes were fixed on it. This was the legendary purple cloud coins with the highest value. It was indeed a good treasure. Although it didn't have any specific use, it spun on the table just like that. It could also be considered a beautiful scenery. Chu Yang recalled a joke he had heard in the past 2 days. It was said that a rich man had entered the purple cloud coin warehouse one day, and then refused to leave even if he had to die. In the end he had starved himself until he fainted. Only then was he carried out. If no one carried him, it wouldn't be surprising if he had starved to death. He became the role model of the greedy people in the Heaven Imperial Court. But now, when Chu Yang saw these 2 purple cloud coins, he finally understood. If a person saw a large pile of purple cloud coins, that kind of magnificence, he would really lose his mind. Since Divine Dr. Chu saw the money, he immediately started the treatment. Just from the surface, these 2 purple cloud coins seemed to be worth it. Divine Dr. Chu was very busy. First he chose a few medicinal herbs. Then he opened small purple crystal bottles one by one. From here he poured out a little bit of powder. From there he poured out a little bit of something with a fishy smell. Then he poured out a sour smell. There were more than 100 kinds of medicinal herbs. Some were more, some were less, and some were in different amounts. It was dazzling. Seeing that the medicinal herbs were all selected, he picked up the medicine pot, said, "Wait a moment," and went into the room. He put it on a stove and boiled it. During the boiling process, he quietly put 3 drops of Lust Dragon's blood and 1 drop of Spring of Life into the pot. The whole process was seamless. This was the first patient, and Chuyang also saw a lot of other things. In order to make a hit, Divine Dr. Chu spent extra money. Not only did he use a lot of Lust Dragon's blood, he also added an extra drop of Spring of Life. This could ensure that the patient's body would be full of vigor and vigor. After a long time, Divine Dr. Chu came out with a bowl of black medicine soup. Almost instantly, the 3 men in black and the 4 men in black outside covered their noses at the same time. What the hell? It's really too smelly. I believe that even if all the items from the 5 grains reincarnation in the world were gathered together and fermented together for more than 10 days, such a smell would definitely not appear. It's too shocking. It turns out that the smell can also be so shocking. Drink it, Chuyang said smilingly. This. The patient made a sound that could make him vomit at any time. Just smelling it was already painful enough, let alone drinking it? This would either make him want to vomit or he would definitely die. Drink it. The man in black on the left urged with a gloomy voice. The patient shivered and pinched his nose with one hand. He brought the bowl to his nose, but he retched again. If he really drank it, he didn't know if he would suffocate to death because of the smell. Even if he didn't suffocate to death, he might not be able to smell anything for the rest of his life. To drink or not to drink. Even if there was a huge pressure and a terrifying threat in front of him, the patient still had a little hesitation. It was imaginable how the smell of the medicine would be like. The man in black on the left gave a signal with his eyes. The man in black on the right, who had been silent and motionless, stepped forward and choked the patient's throat with one hand. His other hand held the bowl of medicine soup. That person subconsciously opened his mouth because he was suffocating, and the bowl of stinky medicine soup was poured into his stomach. The man in black on the right actually helped him to rub his stomach thoughtfully. He used his elemental energy to press against his back and quickly catalyze the medicine. After a long time, after confirming that all the medicine had been catalyzed, he let go of the patient. That person had obviously finished drinking the medicine soup, but he was still retching. However, he couldn't vomit anything out. The man in black on the left looked at him coldly and turned to ask Chuyang, "How long will it take for the medicine to take effect?" Chuyang calculated and said, 2 hours. At most it will take effect in 2 hours. Good. I'll wait for you for 2 hours. The man in black looked at Chuyang gloomily. "Doctor, if you don't feel anything after 2 hours, then, you know the consequences." Chuyang said lightly, "If it doesn't take effect, not to mention that place, even if my head is cut off, so what?" Hearing him speak with such confidence, the black-clothed man looked at him cautiously. Time passed by little. About an hour had passed. The patient suddenly became very excited. He stood up from the stool and walked back and forth. He didn't have the sickly appearance from before. He couldn't help but murmur, I feel it, I feel it. I feel it, you feel it? You really feel it?" The man in black seemed to want to make a move to confirm it, but he held back. After 2 hours, the patient closed his eyes and felt it carefully. He suddenly laughed. I feel it again." As he spoke, he suddenly burst into tears and muttered to himself, "It's because of this strange disease that can't see the light of day that I spent all my wealth. First it didn't work. Then I was cheated and went bankrupt. The cost was more than hundreds of millions. I didn't expect that it would be a bowl of medicine soup here. A bowl of medicine soup can cure my chronic disease." The man in black on the right reached out and touched it. He nodded. "Dr. Chu, thank you very much this time. But I don't know how long this effect will last." Chuyang said seriously, "Doctors must be fair. Even if you didn't ask, I would say it clearly. If this person is treated by me, as long as he doesn't indulge in beauty like before, and can nourish himself regularly, I can guarantee that there won't be any problems in the future. But if he continues to rot like before, then I'm afraid that this effect won't last for more than half a year. If the old disease comes back, it will be troublesome." The patient said repeatedly, "Thank you, Divine Doctor, for your wonderful skill. I won't dare to indulge in sensual pleasures in the future. Divine Doctor, not only did I recover, but my body also felt much better. My legs and feet have strength. You are really a divine doctor." Chuyang said modestly, but in his heart he thought, "I gave you 3 drops of Lust Dragon's blood. If you can't do it, you should cut it off." As for the strength in your legs and feet, half of it is due to the spring of life, and the other half is due to the residual medicinal power accumulated in your body. How can it not be good? If you can absorb it at the right time, I dare not say that your cultivation will advance greatly, but at least your body will be strong and healthy and you won't get sick. Chapter 1739. Half a year, only half a year. The man in black on the left pondered for a while and said, "Doctor, is there any way to completely cure the illness without any repercussions? What I mean is, even after the treatment, the kind where one can indulge in sensual pleasures without restraint." Chu Yang shook his head and said, "I understand what you mean. There are ways to achieve that effect. But it's not something that can be solved with just 2 purple cloud coins. Moreover, as the saying goes, a person's strength is limited. Even if he fully recovers and his ability increases greatly, if he continues to indulge in sensual pleasures, he will sooner or later repeat the same mistake. And if he relapses again under such circumstances, even I will have to spend a lot of time and effort to treat him. So, if you can control it, it's better to control it as much as possible. The patient will suffer less and I will have less trouble. Please think carefully." "I understand. I will keep your advice in mind." The man in black on the left looked at Chu Yang like a hawk. Then he waved his hand and said, "Let's go." The 2 of them carried the patient in black and the 3 of them went out like a whirlwind, disappearing into the night. The departure of the 3 of them was as strange as when they came. Looking at the 2 purple cloud coins in Chu Yang's hand, Shifty Guy's eyes widened and his mouth cracked open. "It's actually really possible?" Shifty Guy's face twitched. "It's so easy to get 2 purple cloud coins?" Chu Yang snorted and said, "That's nothing. It's only 2 purple cloud coins. It's still a long way from 15 million. But it's just one night, that's 200 million? Water cloud coins." Fishy tugged at his beard, his face full of disbelief. "This is too fast, too unbelievable, it's simply unheard of." Chu Yang looked outside with a deep gaze. He said, "Incredible, the real shocking part is still to come. My plan has just begun, or rather it's just the first step. But this first step is still very successful." There was an indescribable strangeness in his eyes. Shifty Guy shook his head and sighed. "A real freak, in the dark night." After the 3 of them walked for a long distance, they turned left and right and entered a secret courtyard. When he came out again, the black clothes and black cloaks were gone. A man with a hooked nose said coldly, "To the brothel." The 3 of them instantly turned into 3 brothels. They strolled out and rushed towards the nearest brothel. After a long time. "It's indeed effective." This fellow had already confirmed it. He was a complete cripple. But now he was able to have sex with 2 women in one night. This was probably due to his weak physique. If he had the physique of a martial artist, perhaps it will take a few more tries. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that it has already recovered. That bastard got lucky. Take him out for a meal to replenish his energy. Bring him back after resting for a while. Until the first glimmer of dawn. Satisfied, the hook-nosed man walked out of the brothel with his hands behind his back. Behind him was a thin man in his 30s. His face was pale, but he couldn't hide his excitement. His face was frail. On the other side there was a vigorous man. "What do we do now?" "Well, let's take care of him first. Tomorrow we'll bring another one over. Let's see if he's unique or versatile. It's best to be careful." "Yes. We have to deal with this matter properly. Can we make a fortune by connecting with them? From then on we'll have a meteoric rise. We may have to rely on this godly doctor. I thought it was a hopeless problem. Who would have thought that a meat pie would fall from the sky? Ah, God is helping me. It's all because of the master's good fortune. Even if there are obstacles, there will be someone to help us." "Ha ha," the hook-nosed man looked at the frail man. His eyes were filled with annoyance. He said to the vigorous man through telepathy, "This kind of scum, it's just a waste of rice to keep him alive. After testing 3 guys with different conditions, all of them will be effective. As long as everything is effective, immediately dispose of these 3 people. Remember, don't leave any traces behind." "Yes." For the next few days, let this guy continue to enjoy himself in the brothel. Firstly, we can continue to observe the effects of the medicine. Secondly, since he's doing us a favor, we should give him some benefits. Just treat it as a royal favor before he dies." "Ah." Laughing, the hook-nosed man strode out with his hands behind his back. In the men's hall. Chu Yang had already closed the door and rested. The men's hall was no longer open for business. It seemed that he had been waiting all night for the arrival of these 3 people. Fishy following Chu Yang to his room, he shook his head and sighed, Chuyang, I realize that I've underestimated you. I can't see through you anymore. Chuyang smiled. Oh? Brother Cat, did you see through me? The reason you opened this men's hall was to fish, right? Fishy asked. That's right. Chuyang nodded. But how did you know that there would be fish here? Fishy was the most confused about this. There's a trick. It's actually not worth anything. It's just a deduction. Chuyang's face lit up and he said, Brother Cat, what kind of people do you think those who have this disease are? The poor. Fishy said with certainty, in the Heaven Imperial Court, the lives of the poor are really too tiring. Although the Eastern Royal Heaven is relatively stronger, it seems that the taxes are also not light. Under such a strong pressure to survive, the poor have to overdraft their physical strength in exchange for the survival of their family. And because the Heaven Imperial Court is full of spiritual energy, the average lifespan of the people is basically between 150 to 200 years old. If they don't overdraft their physical strength, they might be able to live a little longer. But because of this, when the poor find wives when they're young, after working for a period of time, their bodies will start to deteriorate gradually when they're around 50 years old. By the time they're 70 or 80 years old, they basically don't have that kind of desire. Slowly, over time, it became the so-called men's hall with disease. However, by that time no one will care. What's left is only the responsibility of providing for the family. It's also because of these responsibilities that people work hard, overdraft, and die early from overwork. Fishy let out a long sigh. Chuyang nodded silently and said, Brother Cat's analysis is not bad. However, compared to ordinary people, cultivators like us are not necessarily without enormous pressure. Firstly, we also have to provide for our families. Secondly, we have to face the life and death battles of the pugilistic world at any time. Although we have great power, there are too many people in this world who are stronger than us. Fishy nodded silently. Also, even in the land of ordinary people, as you said, there are many poor people with disease, but they basically don't care. Because the pressure on them is too great. Even if they want to care, they can't care more and can only let it go. Even if they're very young and already like this in their 20s, most will still choose to endure. Of course, there are also some who won't, and that will lead to a tragedy. Brother Cat should understand what I mean. Fishy sighed. But it's different for the rich. Because they live a comfortable life without any pressure to speak of, there are more opportunities to indulge in sensual pleasures. Especially those rich second-generation heirs. The second-generation heirs, the third-generation aristocrats. This is the law of the world. No one can go against it and no one can avoid it. Most of the second-generation heirs can't stabilize themselves. Because the poor become rich, their mentality is unbalanced. And the first-generation entrepreneurs often have a kind of mentality which is, my generation has suffered so much. Now that I'm rich, I naturally can't let my son suffer that kind of hardship again. But they don't know that having this kind of thinking is the beginning of spoiling the child, and spoiling the child is destroying all of his future prospects. At this time, money, beauty, and rare things are all within the reach of the second-generation brothers. Over time, it has become a vicious cycle. And the primordial yang is the root of a man. If it's not restrained, it will inevitably lead to a deficiency. So, the poor start at the age of 40 or 50, but the second-generation heirs of rich families are often under 20, or in their 20s or 30s, this kind of situation will occur. And here I am, precisely set up to deal with this kind of situation. And the high threshold is, of course, to make them spit out a part of the money they used to commit evil. I'm so poor, it can be said that I'm robbing the rich to help the poor. Robbing the rich to help the poor. Teacher Cat rolled his eyes violently. Chuyang smiled faintly. Of course, this is just a small amount of money. Because the target is only a small fish. The real big fish will only come after the small fish. So, I have to give the small fish some benefits. Then who is the real big fish? Chuyang smiled but did not say anything. Shifty said, You've calculated everything step by step in advance? Chuyang chuckled and pointed outside. He said, It's dark outside, so with a little camouflage they can't see who is coming. This provides them with better cover. That's why there are patients coming at night. But I didn't expect there to be patients on the first day and in such a hurry. Chuyang said faintly, To be able to earn a small amount of money on the first day, it's a good start. Shifty heard the word, small amount of money, again and couldn't help but roll his eyes. Then he sighed and said, Yes, compared to your goal, this is indeed just a small amount of money. If it's only at this rate of earning money, it'll probably take tens of thousands of years to gather what you need. But I still don't understand, where is your big fish? Chapter 1740. Brother Cat, there's no need to be so stubborn. I wonder if Brother Cat still remembers. On the day we ate and dashed, did you pay attention to what the people around you were talking about? Chuyang blinked strangely. What people around me were talking about? Greasy Face was stunned. After a long while, he said with a red face, I really didn't pay attention. The first half of that meal was just eating and drinking, the second half was anxious about not having enough money, and the second half was acting. How could he have the leisure to think about other things? Brother Cat. Chuyang lectured seriously, you and I are martial artists. The most important thing is to keep our eyes and ears open. How can you be so careless? How can you accomplish great things if you are so careless? Greasy Face flushed red, he bared his teeth and said, are you going to say it or not? I've heard a lot of news, but I'm only interested in one piece. Chuyang said mysteriously, on the fifth table to our right near the window there were two people talking. One of them said, how long has it been since I've seen the city lord? The other person said, it seems that I haven't seen the city lord since he remarried last year. The girls over there are all strange. Speaking of this, Chuyang smiled. What's wrong with this? What can it mean? Greasy Face was puzzled. Just from these few sentences, I've analyzed a few things. First, these two people run brothels and have many beautiful girls under them. Secondly, before the city lord remarried, he would often visit them. Of course, whether it's to find their girls or to visit the brothels, it shows that the city lord is a lecher. In other words, he likes to do things in bed. Third, our city lord is a very principled person. Because he wants to vent his desires, he goes to the brothels. Would such a powerful person go to the brothels? Isn't it normal for him to bully people? Fourth, that person's original words were, the girls are all strange. He didn't say, a certain girl is strange. This shows that the city lord didn't go to find a girl. Do you understand now? First, this city lord is very strong, Chuyang chuckled. Greasy could not help but be dumbfounded. Those two people didn't say much in total. But Chuyang was able to analyze and deduce so much information from their conversation. Just as he was about to speak, he heard Chuyang continue. Sneaky had no choice but to swallow his words. Also, the city lord no longer went there after he remarried a few years ago. Chuyang winked mysteriously. Brother Cat, you have to be careful. It's a remarriage, not a concubine. Remarriage was marrying a wife. In other words, the city lord only has one wife now. That's right, what does that have to do with anything? A big family will definitely need a madam to hold down the fort. Idiot. Chuyang was exasperated. He used to go to brothels to seek pleasure. He would always find a few girls to accompany him, but now that he had a wife, he no longer went to brothels? What do you think this means? Fishy scratched his head. What does that mean? Chuyang widened his eyes. He sighed, you really shouldn't be a cat. You should be a pig. Don't pretend to know when you don't know. There's no pig in the demon race. It's not embarrassing to say that you don't know when you don't know. At most, you're just ignorant. But you insist that you know when you don't know. It's the most embarrassing to pretend to know when you don't know. After spending so much time with you these past few days, I feel like my IQ has been lowered by you. Pretending to know when you don't know is tiring to others and yourself. Sneaky replied righteously. Chuyang patted his forehead and lay down on his back. Facing this guy, he was really speechless. In the end, he could only continue to explain himself. So, I concluded that first, this newly remarried city lord's wife. Maybe the demand, that is relatively large, so the city lord no longer has the spare energy for other women. But this chance is only half, so it's not necessarily the case. Second, maybe the city lord. I'm sick. The city lord has his own dignity. Since he could disregard his dignity in the past, it shows how lecherous he is. But now it's so abnormal. So I bet it's the latter. He even remarried. It's just a cover for him to not set foot in brothels. Another guess is that it's because of the former and the latter. After hearing so much former and latter, Sneaky couldn't help but feel dizzy. But no matter what the reason is, I always feel that this is an opportunity. Chuyang smiled mysteriously and clenched his fist lightly. He said, as long as there's an opportunity, I should seize it. Sneaky was stunned. He said, you opened this hall of men just because of these two sentences? What if you guessed wrong? What if it's not what you think? Chuyang spread his hands. Nothing is absolute in this world. If I guessed wrong, there's nothing I can do. But as long as there's a 10% chance, I'll try. What's more, there's at least a 20% chance of success. What's the harm in trying? Besides, if I want to buy Wuxia Royal Mansion, the first hurdle is to have status. Only with status can I have a chance to meet the city lord and then get his approval. And it's only a possibility. And what channels do I have to get in touch with the city lord now? Chu Yang said, even if there are other channels, it's too slow to take effect. I'm afraid it won't work within half a year. So I might as well take a gamble. Even if it's not what I think it is, fine. What's the loss to me? But if I'm right, with such power, I'll be the city lord's benefactor. If my benefactor wants to buy something, he'll be the supervisor. Will he open the door for me? If that's the case, how many detours can I avoid? Chu Yang smiled. Moreover, the 3 people who came tonight have made me more confident in my conjecture about this matter. I don't understand. What do these 3 people have to do with your guess? Sneaky shook his head. Can you tell who these 3 people are? Chu Yang asked. I can't tell. But I can be sure that the martial artist level of the 2 people other than the patient is about the same as yours, Sneaky said. Chu Yang was speechless at this guy's IQ. He said, among the 3, the patient is a pauper. He's completely at the mercy of others. He's just an experimental subject. And among the other 2, the one who's been giving orders is a businessman. Or someone from a financial magnate family. How do you know he's a businessman? Maybe he's an assassin? Sneaky was unconvinced. That's why I said you're stupid. First, because he used his thumb to pick out those 2 purple cloud coins. Chu Yang said lightly, using the action of picking to give out the purple cloud coins and letting it fall on the table to spin in circles. I believe only people who play with money for a long time can do that. Which ordinary martial artist would have such a weird habit? It's just a coin. Second, that person also has a kind of majesty, or the aura of a superior. But this kind of aura isn't the kind of majesty that comes from someone with a high position. It's a kind of confidence that belongs to someone with a lot of confidence. And there's a sense of superiority. He doesn't care about anything. His attitude towards money is even more frivolous. And usually, people like this are very rich businessmen. That's true. Sneaky suddenly realized. Also, from the looks of those 2 people, they only have expectations for me. They don't have any more demands. This shows that they don't have that kind of illness. Since they don't have that kind of illness, they still want to use a poor man to test my medical skills. And they don't hesitate to spend a lot of money just to prove that I have this kind of ability. I believe that they have big plans. You have to know that they threw out 2 purple cloud coins just to test me. This shows that my medical skills are of great use to them. And the great use of businessmen is nothing more than to make a lot of money. So, what kind of person can make them so much money? Especially in this purple cloud city. What kind of person is worthy of their investment? Chu Yang asked. The city lord? Sneaky suddenly realized. You've finally been enlightened for once. Chu Yang said, looking around this place, it seems that only the city lord has such great power. Let me ask you, if they provide the right channel, and under some kind of opportunity, cure the city lord's illness, what will the result be? Then it'll definitely be unimpeded. Sneaky said, but how can you be sure that they came for this? Like I said, nothing is absolute in this world. This depends on the follow-up. I don't dare to be very sure. But if they find a different patient in the next few days, then I'll have more confidence. Chu Yang said lightly, so I still need to wait a few days and earn a few days' worth of money. Even if they came for this, even if the city lord really has this kind of illness, after you cure him, the credit will still go to them. It won't have much to do with you. Sneaky scratched his ears and cheeks for a long time before he poured cold water on Chu Yang. He just couldn't see through this. I naturally have a way. Chu Yang said lightly. First, they also don't dare to directly tell the city lord that you have the illness of the lonely one, right? So, they must use a roundabout way to introduce me to the city lord in a way that doesn't hurt his face. Then they will gradually guide him. And this roundabout way is my chance. Chu Yang blinked. If this person can be honest, maybe I'll leave him some soup to drink. But if he's vicious and merciless and doesn't let me have an easy time, then I'll simply take everything that he's plotting for myself. A smile appeared at the corner of Chu Yang's mouth. Although I don't know what he's plotting, he has to pay at least 20 purple cloud coins for this matter. That means that the profit from this matter is definitely above 100 purple cloud coins or even more. If it's less than 100 and there are so many uncertainties, they may not take the risk. Chu Yang laughed. Although it's not much, it's not little for the average person. If I can take it, I can barely buy a few pieces of candy to eat. Oh, tens of billions of Shuayun coins to buy a few pieces of candy? The candy you buy can kill yourself 100 times over. Sneaky said this, but in his heart he was suddenly full of admiration for Chu Yang. Chapter 1741. Suddenly, Greasy Cat felt something. That bet, Chu Yang really, might not necessarily be unwinnable. This little girl was actually able to deduce and infer so much from just a few clues. Then she came up with a series of plans. Not only was the feasibility of her plans extremely high, they were also meticulous and could be said to be interlinked and watertight. She was even able to calculate the slightest detail of one's heart. Truly impressive. As the master of a clan, I'm afraid I'm not even 1/10,000th of this little one's intelligence. Bah, I'll just keep these thoughts to myself. I can't let this little one know that I think so. Besides, I'm only teaching knowledge, not studying conspiracies. I've finally figured out all the tricks of the cause and effect. I almost regard someone as my idol. Although I only think about it in my heart, I won't admit it verbally. Wait a minute. Greasy Cat suddenly felt that he seemed to have been tricked by himself. Hold on, let me ask you something. Why do I hear from your little one that even if I didn't make this bet with you that day, you would still do this? This plan has already been confirmed and launched long ago? Greasy Cat became even more depressed. In other words, this is actually an unexpected gain? Without my plan, it's still the same with me. But with me it's a little more profitable. That's how you planned it, right? Chu Yang hurriedly smiled apologetically. Look at what you're saying. How can that be? Who are you, the master of the cat clan? How can there be such a thing as you? At that time, I didn't intend to buy the Wuxia royal residence. Greasy Cat nodded and agreed. That's true. How can I be so easily tricked? You're absolutely right. Although I hunted a rabbit on New Year's Eve, it's still New Year's Eve. But if there would be more rabbit meat fragrance. What's that saying again? Oh right, no matter how small a grasshopper is, it's still meat. Chu Yang revealed a smile that deserved a beating. Greasy Cat was exasperated. How could he not be angry? Being compared to a rabbit was frustrating, but the rabbit clan was at least of the same level as the cat clan. But what about a grasshopper? What about me? What do you think about me? Chu Yang crossed his arms. Suddenly, a feeling of exultation welled up in his heart. He had been ridiculed a while ago, and now he was being mocked in return. So he felt as if he was floating in the air. Fishy's face flushed red. He looked at a certain arrogant, complacent, joyful young man who deserved a beating. The tail behind his buttocks was so angry that it almost stood upright under his robe. He snorted hatefully and left with a flick of his sleeves. Only 2 words were left. You're jumping around happily today, but be careful of the list in the future. Do you think you've won for sure? Let's see how you cry when you lose. Meow. The corners of Chu Yang's mouth twitched as he watched Foxy walk out angrily. Then he turned around and for some reason his entire body's posture inexplicably changed. His face also became unrecognizable in the truest sense of the word. In a trance, it was as if he had become another person. In the next moment he silently floated out of the window. Just as Foxy returned to his room, his eyebrows suddenly twitched. He muttered to himself, "It's so late. Where is this guy going? Don't let someone sneak up on you and kill you. His cultivation base is really not enough." Then he silently floated out as well. Of course, the strength of a heaven-level master was not just a matter of words. They were truly extraordinary. With Chu Yang's current cultivation level, it was impossible for him to see Teacher Cat's invisible trail, let alone detect it. Foxy watched as Chu Yang's unusually wretched figure turned and turned. He slowly moved to the front of a large building. He seemed to have taken out some money to buy something. Then he walked in leisurely. Teacher Cat walked closer to take a look. He saw a big board at the entrance, Spirit Beast Gaming Hall. So this guy Chu Yang actually came here to gamble? Teacher Cat shook his head and sighed in disappointment. He's so young yet he doesn't learn the right things. He just got some money and he can't help but squander it. There doesn't seem to be any risk here. It's better for me to go back and sleep early. It didn't seem right to not go back and sleep properly. The Spirit Beast Gaming Hall was a place to buy gold. The entrance fee was not cheap. A certain cat really couldn't afford it. Since he could roughly confirm someone's safety, he naturally had to turn back. This kind of Spirit Beast Gaming Hall was probably equivalent to the heaven-level playboy's favorite place to run dogs and cockfights. However, this place was much more advanced. The opponents of the game were spirit beasts with decent strength. If any spirit beast here was placed in the heaven level, it could easily cause a sensation. Unfortunately, in the heaven level it could only be reduced to a game prop. The Spirit Beast Gaming Hall was a favorite gambling method of the heaven-level martial artists. The method of the Spirit Beast Gaming Hall was very simple. Everyone would place their bets on the Spirit Beast that they liked. Then, through the competition between the Spirit Beasts, the outcome of the battle would determine the winner and loser. Basically, it wasn't much different from a cockfight in the ordinary sense. However, the excitement and entertainment of the battle between the Spirit Beasts were undoubtedly far from being comparable to other gambling methods. In addition, to be able to enter this place, it already proved that one was superior, martial artists. This was because only the Spirit Beasts that one chose or caught were qualified to enter this place. Moreover, one had to be at least a martial artist of the Shen level to be qualified to enter. Ordinary people couldn't enter even if they wanted to. And here, the main taboo was that any kind of fighting was strictly prohibited. Even if one had a hatred of killing one's father or stealing one's wife, as long as one entered this place, all hatred had to be temporarily put aside before leaving. Of course, there was also a limit to how long one could stay inside. Under normal circumstances, martial artists of the Earth level and below were not allowed to stay inside for more than 3 days. Only martial artists of the Earth level and above were allowed to extend their stay. However, even martial artists of the celestial level were not allowed to stay inside for more than 3 months. Chu Yang carried the 2 purple cloud coins that he had just earned and entered the gaming hall leisurely. As soon as he entered, he was almost knocked over by the clamor. It was just that he almost tripped. Every single guest here had considerable strength, so the sound of their voices gathered together naturally had a considerable impact. If it was an ordinary person, they would not be able to withstand it. A certain king of hell was caught off guard and made a fool of himself. It sounded quiet from the outside, but he didn't expect it to be like a tsunami inside. Fortunately, there were no acquaintances around. If others knew that the dignified Tribulation Sword Master was almost knocked over by the clamor, it wouldn't be nice. As far as the eye could see, countless people were blushing and shouting at the top of their lungs, "Bite it! Bite it! Bite it with all your might! Tear it apart! Quickly dodge! Oh, my money! I lost again, IXXXXX. What? I've earned back all my money this time. My eyesight." Chu Yang listened to these voices and saw that the gaming hall was full of people. Everyone's faces were red, and their pupils were almost dilated as they screamed. He couldn't help but sigh. They still said that this was the most high-end gambling place. How was this different from a casino for ordinary people? Chu Yang finally understood a principle: gamblers were gamblers. Even if one was a person with a wealth of hundreds of millions, as long as he was still a gambler, he was no different from a bunch of commoners when gambling. The next moment, Minister Chu's eyes turned and he suddenly burst out with a loud shout, "Wow, this is so fun! Wow, I'm coming!" Then, with an impatient, and no longer waiting attitude, they rushed in while howling. His face was red and he was dancing with joy. Such a crazy gambler's attitude was like a super gambler who had been lonely for tens of thousands of years and suddenly entered a casino again. This was a kind of selfless spirit. Selfless for the sake of gambling. Selfless for the sake of gambling. Witnessing the madness of a certain king of hell, the people who were cheering at the top of their lungs couldn't help but be shocked. What the fuck, has this guy not been exposed to gambling for hundreds of generations? It looks like he's going to have a heart attack from excitement. Please don't fall next to me, so fucking unlucky. At this time, 2 staff members of the Spirit Beast Gaming Hall came up to him with smiles on their faces. Such people were commonly seen in casinos. They only knew how to place bets and didn't know how to stop. They would never leave until they lost everything. And any casino would welcome this kind of person. The money god was here. As for why he wasn't the money god, it was because the money god could give out endless wealth, but the money god could give out money but was poor. This kind of person couldn't be the money god, so he could only be called the money god. "Welcome, sir. May I ask what kind of gambling method you like?" asked one of the staff members. "Is there a need to ask? Of course, I have to try everything." Chu Yang looked around with shining eyes. Then he tiptoed and looked into the distance. Listening to the noise, he was intoxicated. "Bring me to place my bet. If you delay the time to win money, I won't forgive you." This and that? Chu Yang glared at him. He had disguised himself as a triangular-eyed man, but at this moment, his aura was threatening. Or rather, it could be said that he looked like a hooligan. "I'm rich. Today I'm using money to win money." As he spoke, he reached into his clothes. With a clatter, a dreamlike coin appeared. "Do you see this? Do you see this? What is this?" When the 2 saw it, their eyes widened. Purple cloud coins. It's actually purple cloud coins? This super gambler in front of him, from head to toe, was actually planning to use purple cloud coins to bet. For so many years, even if we're used to operating casinos, we haven't seen many who directly use purple cloud coins to gamble. This idiot is actually a rich guy? Looking at him, he's probably a nouveau riche? It seems that this kind of person is really too cute. After Chuyang took out the purple cloud coins, he felt even better about himself. He looked up to the sky and roared, "I have plenty of money. If I lose, I'll leave obediently. If I win, I'll take it. If I win, I'll gamble with money. If I win, it'll be up to me. If I win, I lose. But if I lose, wow, it'll be up to me." Chapter 1742. Chu Yang's voice wasn't soft at all. And every word he said was full of arrogance and insolence, making everyone who heard him feel uncomfortable as if they had just eaten shit. Instantly, dozens of people heard him. They turned around with dissatisfaction and were about to scold him. Where did this idiot come from? Is this nouveau riche so arrogant that he doesn't even know his own name? What kind of bastard is this? How dare you disturb my mood here? Are you looking for a beating? Damn it, the more things go wrong, the more idiots come to make trouble. I'm already anxious about losing, and now there's an idiot coming to make me angry? Many people turned around cursing, but the next moment they were all stunned. In this nouveau riche's palm was a dreamy purple coin. He was tossing it up, catching it, tossing it up again, catching it again. His face was full of frivolity and his body was full of arrogance. But at this moment, no one noticed this. Whether he was full of arrogance, frivolity, or frivolity, it was all meaningless at this moment. Purple cloud coin. It's actually purple cloud coin? Am I seeing things? Damn it. It's actually purple cloud coin. He's actually betting with purple cloud coin? Is this guy brainless or is there something wrong with his brain? What do you know? He's rich. That's right, how can he take out purple cloud coin if he's poor? I like rich people like him the most. I want to bet with him. What more can I ask for in a bet with purple cloud coin? I want it too. Then a group of people gathered around, their eyes full of the brilliance of purple cloud coin. Hey little brother, why don't the two of us play around? Do you have money? Do you want to gain something without risking anything? Let me do it. Brother. What do you want to play? I'm willing to play with you. Obviously, Chuyang still underestimated the power of purple cloud coin. After all, this was a relatively small city on the edge, and purple cloud coin was the most valuable currency in the whole Heaven Imperial City. Too many people had never seen it before, let alone owned it. Now he took out purple cloud coin so casually. How could people not be jealous? Coveting? Chuyang made a prompt decision. He cupped his fists in a hoodlum manner and bowed. Everyone. Today is the first time I've come to Wuxia City's Spirit Beast game field. I'm not very familiar with the environment here. Let me first familiarize myself with the surroundings and look at the gambling rules here. In a while, if anyone wants to gamble with me, as long as you have the money. As long as you can afford to lose, this little brother will throw caution to the wind. No one was rejected. Was winning or losing nothing more than money? What was money? Money is a bastard. If I lose it all, I'll earn more. Alright. How carefree. We're all waiting for you here. We all have money. If you agree to a bet, you must accept your loss. Ha! The response was like a tsunami. Everyone was grinning from ear to ear. Damn it, you're not even familiar with this place? Wouldn't that make him a super rookie? Furthermore, this newbie was a super upstart. If that was the case, this guy was simply here to give money to the elders. Wah! Chuyang impatiently grabbed the casino staff and urged, quickly introduce me to the explanation. The two staff members looked gloomy. They had never seen someone so anxious to lose money. You said you don't know anything, what are you so anxious about? We're here for the Spirit Beast game field. All kinds of games are available. Over there, it's the Flying Spirit Beast game field. It's divided into two types. However, between these two types, there are many small games. There are many variations. The gambling methods can be roughly divided into ordinary games and life and death games. For the former, as long as one side's Spirit Beast is defeated. If the Spirit Beast's master is willing to admit defeat, the game will end immediately. For the latter, the game will only end after the Spirit Beast's life and death are decided. However, that's a lot more cruel. Therefore, if you want to start a life and death game, every bet must be at least 1,000 purple spirit coins. The staff members patiently explained the rules to Chuyang. Chuyang nodded as he listened. Then he took a look at the various gambling games. After getting a closer look, he eagerly requested to enter the game. As expected, the nouveau riche Chuyang lost a lot of money that night. At the very least, hundreds of thousands of purple soul coins had been squandered inside. However, a certain king of hell's expression did not change from beginning to end. In the end, he laughed loudly and walked out, shouting, "Awesome. Really fucking awesome." He walked away. He really lost in a carefree manner. It's rare to see someone so happy when he loses money. Someone muttered. He's a nouveau riche. He must have money to burn. Ah, so stupid. If it were me, I would feel the pain. That's more than 400,000 purple spirit coins. My god. Tisk, didn't you see? He didn't even take out his purple spirit coins for the whole night. With purple spirit coins as a base, 400,000 purple spirit coins are nothing. Looks like this guy is addicted to playing. That's great. Looking at that guy's attitude, he'll definitely come every day for the next few days. It just so happens that I'm a little short on money. I finally have a way to make up for it. Ha ha. Chuyang returned to the men's hall and immediately opened for business. Of course, no one came in during the day. When night came, or to be more precise, around midnight, patients came in as expected. Although the two people from last night did not come in person, Chuyang was very sure that this was still the same situation. It was the second stage led by the two people from last night. This time, the patient's symptoms were more serious than the one from last night. Chuyang naturally did not hold back and asked for 10 purple spirit coins. He was testing the bottom line of the mastermind behind this, or in other words, testing the depth of the profit that person wanted to make. If there was even a little bit of dissatisfaction, Chuyang would not hold much hope. Businessmen valued profit. As long as there was a profit of 3,000, they would not hesitate. However, if the profit was not enough, as long as the risk was slightly bigger, they would not take the risk. However, the result this time was out of his expectations. This time the other party actually took out 10 purple spirit coins. Although they argued for a while, in the end they obediently paid the money. They did not even ask the mastermind behind this. 1 billion water cloud coins. What a huge sum of money this was. As he collected the money, Chuyang's eyes shone. It seemed. The other party's goal was really not small. One must know that a person who was not the mastermind actually had a wealth worth 1 billion water cloud coins and was willing to pay for the treatment. This meant that the upper limit of the treatment fee given by the mastermind would not be less than 10 purple spirit coins. And this result also meant that another thing that Chuyang was most concerned about had happened. This King of Hell's prediction was indeed carried out. Therefore, the treatment effect of Divine Dr. Chu's treatment was also immediate. The other party left happily. Although it was painful to spend 1 billion water cloud coins, that money did not belong to him in the first place. And his embarrassing illness that he could not tell others was cured. This was the biggest gain. Chuyang weighed the purple spirit coins that were shining like a dream, and a strange smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Such a speed of making money really makes me jealous. The cat teacher shook his head and walked out of the room. He sighed. Just like this, it made others hard, happy. The money came. 1 billion in one night. Chuyang snorted proudly. Suddenly he felt that there was something wrong with these words. With a black face he said, "Make yourself clear. What do you mean by 1 billion in one night? What do you mean by making others hard, happy? And what do you mean by, just like this? These words will cause others to think. Do you understand?" Fishy snorted. His tail wagged behind his buttocks, indicating that he was very happy to be able to attack Chuyang. He said, "But you're going to earn 15 million purple cloud coins. It seems that you've only earned 12 purple cloud coins so far. Continue to work hard. I'm very happy to watch your final struggle." Chuyang snorted and said, "Open your cat eyes wide and continue to watch." Fishy wagged his tail proudly. "I have to remind you that even if you win all the spirit beasts in the game field here, I believe that it's not even a fraction of that sum of money." Chuyang was not surprised that Foxy Cat knew about his movements. Although Foxy Cat did not do things well, he was a real heaven-grade expert. It would be strange if Chuyang could hide his movements from Foxy Cat. He snorted and said, "You're really short-sighted. How can you understand my ingenuity and foresight?" "Bullshit. Remember, I'm from the Cat clan." Teacher Cat jumped high and said angrily, "If you use that lowly rat to disgust me again, I'll definitely teach you a lesson. Also, I think you're not doing proper work since you're young. Ingenuity and foresight? I haven't seen you cultivate for so long. Do you know how many people in the heaven level can kill you with a wave of their hand?" As he spoke, he looked at Chuyang and said angrily, "I've never seen an ascended warrior like you who doesn't want to improve. When I saw you a few days ago, you were at the high level of the mortal level. Until now, you're still at the peak of the high level of the mortal level. Really? Peak of the high level of the mortal level? You're actually at the peak of the high level of the mortal level? Suddenly, Fishy's eyes turned completely round, and there was a tiny black dot in the middle. It was a black eyeball. Chuyang didn't know why, but when he saw Teacher Cat's eyes now, they were snow-white and round with a small black dot in the middle. And Minister Chu's heart suddenly became evil. How fucking similar? That's not right. When did you cultivate in the past few days? If you cultivated, I would know. Fishy looked at Chuyang in disbelief. But if you didn't cultivate, how did you improve? And such a big improvement? Chuyang spread out his hands and said, "That's right. Why did you pinch it? I really didn't cultivate, so why did I improve so much? Why is that?" Chapter 1743. He looked at Chuyang suspiciously and grabbed him. "I only saw that your aptitude wasn't very good before, but I didn't take a careful look at your aptitude. Let me take a look. Could it be that I was wrong before and your aptitude is actually," Chuyang said with a faint smile, "you will definitely be shocked after you see it." Fishy said disdainfully, "Even if this meow had misjudged you before, this meow has never seen a high-quality physique before. No matter how outstanding your physique is, I won't be surprised." Beyond halfway through his words, Urun let out an earth-shattering cry of surprise. Then he looked like an ordinary person who had seen a demon. He staggered back 3 steps and raised his head. His face was full of disbelief as he looked at Chuyang. Chuyang said with a faint smile, "How is it? Aren't you shocked?" "What the fuck, this is a fuck saying." Fishy panted heavily and his eyes were round. "Heaven and earth have all 2 elements, yin and yang, metal, wood, water, fire, and earth have all 5 elements. What the fuck, hiss? I thought I was wrong before, but I didn't expect. How can there be such a trashy physique in this world?" Teacher Cat was speechless. Chuyang said with a smile, "My aptitude is considered outstanding, right?" Fishy rolled his eyes weakly and said, "Yes, outstanding, really fucking outstanding. It's really the first time I've seen. Your physique is more than outstanding." Teacher Cat said halfway and searched for the right words in his heart. After a while he said, "It's basically the #1 trash since ancient times, the ultimate trash that has never been seen before and will never be seen again. It can't be cultivated, the sun and moon lose their light, it makes people speechless to the extreme. It's absolutely out of the ordinary, outstanding, and useless. You can actually cultivate with such a physique, it's really fucking unreasonable." Chuyang frowned and said, "Not suitable for cultivation? But how can my cultivation progress be so fast?" Fishy looked at Chuyang with some pity. "Brother Chu, let me have a word with you. Don't look at how you're making great progress right now. Maybe it's because your cultivation method is unique, or maybe you've had a lot of opportunities and obtained a lot of heavenly treasures. But when you reach the earth level, your body will start to form a primal chaos of its own. You'll be damned. Your physique makes people speechless. Good luck." Chuyang laughed. His tone was even more carefree, as if he didn't take it to heart at all. "It doesn't matter. Right now, I'm at the peak of the human level. I'm only 1 step away from the earth level. I think I'll be able to experience it very soon." Listening to Chuyang's laughter, he frowned deeply. She let out a long sigh and her heart was filled with sadness. Because of his high status in the Miao clan, he didn't have many friends for half of his life. He didn't have many friends to mess around with. So, he had been alone all this time. Although he was ambushed this time, he didn't have many friends who would joke around with him. So, he had been alone all this time. She still felt very happy in her heart. She was with Chuyang. She felt a kind of happiness like a legendary friend. So, she didn't want to leave at all. But at this moment she realized that Chuyang actually had such a trashy physique. On the other hand, Fishy couldn't help but feel sad for ZJ's new friend. If your martial cultivation really can't improve after the earth level. She seemed to have made a difficult decision and said, "Brother Chu, I'll bring you back to the Miao clan and ensure your safety for the rest of your life. I believe I can still do this." Chuyang's heart trembled. He could tell that the words "fishy" were absolutely sincere. After a long time Chuyang said warmly, "Brother Cat, I'll take your words seriously. If it really comes to that, I'll look for you. You have to take care of me." She smiled happily and wagged her tail happily. "Don't worry, I'll do what I say." Chuyang laughed and turned to walk out. "Brother Cat, you play first. I'm going to gamble." His stomach was full of sincere friendship, and he was about to be touched by Chuyang's sincere friendship. Suddenly, Chuyang's words made him feel as if a basin of cold water had been poured over his head. In an instant, his stomach was filled with a strong feeling of wanting to fart, and he angrily roared, "Get lost!" Chu Yang laughed out loud and disappeared like a wisp of smoke. Is Chu Yang really cultivating in the past few days? What Chu Yang saw didn't seem like he was cultivating. But in fact, Chu Yang was cultivating every moment. Every moment, he was madly absorbing the energy of the big elixirs in the tribulation space. He was madly absorbing the energy of the purple crystal and the spiritual energy of heaven and earth that the tribulation space automatically produced. The clumsy bird flies first. Chu Yang didn't think that he was a clumsy bird. But, no matter if you were a genius or a trashy person, you were trash if you didn't work hard. Moreover, Chu Yang's physique was so different, Chu Yang was actually more anxious than anyone else. In these few days he was practically sleeping. He would meditate for a while to recover his energy. Then he would cultivate like a whale swallowing the energy. In just a few days, 50,000 purple crystals in the tribulation space had turned into dust. And of course Chu Yang didn't care about this. 5 days in a row. Chu Yang would go out during the day and mysteriously do some SHME from time to time. Every night he would receive a patient with a disease. Moreover, Chu Yang's asking price was getting higher and higher. When he reached the first patient, he even asked for a sky-high price of 50 purple cloud coins. Of course, Chu Yang took back all the money he had spent on the swords and sabers that he had sent out for auction. Other than the last big piece of purple crystal jade essence that was not up for auction yet, Chu Yang received 7 million purple cloud coins from the auction of the swords and sabers that he had sent out. This money was quite a lot. At the very least, it could allow anyone in this Heaven Imperial Court to live comfortably for an entire lifetime. However, this was quite a large sum of money. If it was converted into purple cloud coins, it would only be 700. Even if Divine Dr. Chu added the money that he earned from treating the patients with diseases, it would only be slightly more than 800 purple cloud coins. This amount wasn't even a fraction of Chu Yang's target of 15 million purple cloud coins. Of course, Chu Yang had been going to the Spirit Beast game field every night for the past few days. Every time he would lose money. After 7 or 8 days, Chu Yang had lost close to 20 million purple spirit coins in there. This amount of money was naturally not small. But with Chu Yang's net worth, he could afford to lose it. However, in the eyes of others, a certain king of hell became the representative of a fool with a lot of money. In this period of time, Chu Yang also tried his best to find a way that belonged to Chu Yang. But to no avail. Chu Yang was also somewhat depressed in his heart. If he wanted to gather 15 million purple cloud coins, if he only relied on the income from opening the men's hall, even if there were many customers, it still wasn't enough. Chu Yang was very curious about this. Unless Chu Yang had a super large corporation that had super businesses in every corner of the Heaven Imperial Court, even so, he might not be able to gather so much wealth within half a year. But now, not to mention such a corporation, Chu Yang couldn't even do anything. It was a new corporation. Even if it was something that was super popular or suited to human needs, it definitely wouldn't be able to earn so much within half a year. As for using Chu Yang's medical skills to build a connection with the city lord, Chu Yang was also very curious. This was just paving the way for Chu Yang. When Chu Yang was rich and capable, he could use this favor to make the city lord relent and sell Chu Yang's Xixia Palace to Chu Yang. As for earning too much money from Chu Yang, actually Chu Yang didn't have any hopes at all. What was the fastest way to earn money in the world? One was to rob and the other was to gamble. But these two things didn't just earn money quickly, they also seemed to be able to spend money very quickly. Moreover, if he wasn't careful, he could even lose his life. Under the strict management of Xixia City. With Chu Yang's current strength, he wasn't much stronger than a shrimp. That was something he didn't even need to think about. Therefore, the only feasible way was to gamble. That was why Chu Yang had this idea. But in this period of time, Chu Yang would either buy spirit beasts from it, or directly bet on the spirit beasts in battle, but he had never won. As for going out to capture, Chu Yang didn't have that kind of time now. So, how should he find the trick to profit from it? Chu Yang was full of questions as he once again walked on the path to the spirit beast game field. Of course, he changed his appearance again and turned back into that wretched gambler. After taking a few steps, Uren's expression turned gloomy as he turned to look at the dark alleyway. Surnamed Zhen, be straightforward. Hand over the money and I'll spare your life. Along with the gloomy voice, two people walked out of the alley in an ostentatious manner. They stared at Chu Yang with a strange and complacent smile. Surnamed Zhen was the name of Chu Yang's fake identity. Zhen Yukai. Yes, it was Chu Yang's clone. It had to be said that Minister Chu had set up this side character for ZJ, which was full of the joy of a nouveau riche. Moreover, he was really talented and really rich. In these few days, Chu Yang had been squandering money in the game field and had already attracted the attention of many people. However, as long as this Zhen Yukai left the game field, he would immediately disappear. So many people who had this idea couldn't do anything about it. In fact, these two people today were one of them. And they were the very persevering kind. Today the heavens finally fulfilled their wishes and blocked this Zhen Yukai. At this moment, the two people simply couldn't believe ZJ's eyes. Damn, we're rich. So many people have ideas about him, but it just had to be us two brothers. Our luck is simply off the charts. Chapter 1744. What do you want to do? You want to rob me? The Heaven Palace is a place where laws are taught. Chu Yang asked with a frightened face. Laws? Haha, with your purple cloud coins, why do you care about laws? The man stared at Chu Yang with his eyes full of golden light. Robbery is against the law. Do you really dare to do it? Chu Yang seemed to be scared out of his wits. Nonsense. We are not waiting here in the middle of the night to have a heart-to-heart talk with you. The man said fiercely, quickly hand over the money and I will be kind enough to leave your corpse intact. Chu Yang shivered and said, I'm so scared. Suddenly he stepped forward and punched. Puff puff puff. Pa pa pa. You. Whoa. A moment ago he was still shivering and the next moment he was extremely powerful. The difference in his expression before and after was like heaven and earth. The two men were hit before they could react. In the Heaven Palace, Chu Yang's divine sense was indeed restricted. He could not check other people's cultivation level, but this did not mean that his divine sense could not feel anything. The two people in front of him didn't give Chu Yang any sense of oppression at all. This also meant that the strength of these two people was just average. Moreover, it was very average. So average that they weren't a match for a certain king of hell. It was true that the two of them were not ordinary people. Otherwise, they would not have been able to enter the local spirit beast game. However, they were also not experts. If they were experts, they would not have been in such a miserable state. They would not have needed to resort to such a despicable method. At best, they were two Shen-level martial artists. How could they be a match for a certain king of hell? Since they were not a match for him, Chu Yang would not be polite. He left the north and south to fight. As soon as the two men said those words, they saw Zhen Yotsai's face full of fear and horror. They were secretly pleased. Unexpectedly, the two men had already pounced on them. The two men did not realize what was going on. Their faces were slapped more than a dozen times. Then they were kicked to the ground dizzily. Their eyes were full of stars and the pain was unbearable. However, they still did not understand what was going on. Just as they were feeling suspicious, they suddenly felt a cold wind blowing in their faces. A knife was placed on their necks. Chu Yang's cold voice resounded, "This is robbery. Hand over the money obediently. Otherwise this old man will chop all of you up and not leave your corpses intact." The two of them burst into tears. Oh heavens, oh earth, oh living beings that fill the sky. What was going on? How did the meaty creature that looked like a quail and a little white rabbit become such a powerful character in an instant? The situation was reversed in an instant. Originally they were the ones robbing others, but now they were the ones being robbed. Moreover, they were the ones being robbed. Moreover, they were being robbed by extremely vicious and vicious people. Just this little bit? Chu Yang weighed the pitiful 4 or 5 purple spirit coins in his hand and was extremely dissatisfied. He frowned and looked at the two people lying in front of him with broken limbs. His expression was very unfriendly. It was rare for him to rob someone. How did he manage to snatch 4 or 5 purple soul coins? This was too degrading. Master Zhen, if we were rich, we wouldn't have come out to do this kind of thing. Please be magnanimous and let us go like farts. We won't dare to do it again. The two of them were so regretful that their intestines turned green. But who would have thought that this arrogant and despotic person who would lose every time he gambled was actually an expert? This time they had really hit an iron plate. That's true. Chu Yang frowned. Just by looking at the two of you, you look like paupers. How about it? Since you're both so poor, why don't you follow me? What? Follow you? The two of them immediately widened their eyes. They simply couldn't believe what they had just heard. For a moment, they even forgot about the pain of their broken limbs. This guy was a super rich person. And he was the kind that was stupid and had a lot of money. Yeah, just follow me around. However, I have to say the ugly words first. I'm lacking manpower right now, and it's not that I've taken a liking to you. It's just that I need you to do odd jobs temporarily. Besides, even if I really let you do things for me, you'll be restricted to a certain extent unless I truly acknowledge you in the future. Chu Yang said coldly, to be honest, I can't be at ease with gambling addicts like you doing things. I'm also not interested in knowing your names. In the future you'll be number 15 and you'll be number 10. Come, open your mouths. I'll give you sweets. Once you eat my sweets, you'll be my people. Remember to obediently do things for me. I won't be so gentle. The two of them were dumbfounded. Gentle? Now that you've broken our arms and legs, you're actually calling it gentle. Do you know what the word gentle means? Who was the teacher who taught you how to read? Why do you keep wanting to slap him flat? Chu Yang entered with ease. He entered the spirit beast game field. Thinking of the fear on the faces of the two after taking the medicine, he couldn't help but shiver. Just as Chu Yang said, it wasn't that he had taken a liking to them, but that he really didn't have more manpower at the moment. Even though Chu Yang was quick-witted and meticulous in planning, he only had 2 hands and 1 pair of legs. It was really difficult to handle too many things. It was necessary to have 2 more people running errands. First, he showed off his superb martial arts to intimidate them. Then he showed them the advantages and disadvantages of not having to die and earning money. Next, he healed their injuries and set their bones. Then he fed them the poison and told them the specific effects of the sweets. In such a short time, Chu Yang clapped his hands and left. Now only the 2 path-cutting thieves were left. Number 15 and number 10 were dumbstruck on the spot. They had originally planned to slaughter a fat sheep and become rich, but they didn't expect to become someone's slaves in the end. What the hell is this saying? Is there still law? Number 15 was crying in snot. It acts up once every 3 months and we have to take the antidote once. My life has been ruined by this robbery. You can't say it like that. Number 10's face was filled with joy. At least he paid us back. Weighing the 2 purple cloud coins in his hand, he looked satisfied. He's really rich. It's not easy to find such a lucrative job nowadays. As long as we don't provoke that guy, it seems like it's also a good job. Sigh. It's too late to say anything now. Let's go rest and recover. I didn't hear that this guy wants us to go on a mission in 3 days. My God. The first time we give a mission we have to run until our legs break. Why did we have to come out to rob this time? Although Chu Yang's Zhenyukai had experienced a robbery, his gambling interest had not decreased. He still entered the spirit beast game field with a rich and imposing manner. He was in high spirits along the way. Yo, big brother Zhen is here. Tonight will definitely be a killing spree. Wow, what a sweet mouth. Reward. Thank you, big brother. Big brother Zhen is here. What do you want to play tonight? I'll take you there. Waha, you have good eyesight. Reward. Big brother Zhen has worked hard. Big brother Zhen is really energetic. Waha, old people are energetic. You're right. Reward. Thank you, big brother. With money paving the way, Zhenyukai, Uncle Zhen, walked into the deepest part of the game arena like a crab. It was not until dawn that Chu Yang's Zhenyukai came out of the game field. This night, Chu Yang did not lose all the way. He was lucky enough to win twice. Yes, although he still lost in the end and even lost a little more than a few days ago, he had finally figured out the pattern. With Chu Yang's brain, how could he blindly look for a way to make money? Just as he guessed, no matter what this guy did, he would only do it if he had a certain amount of confidence. Otherwise, he would not make any plans, arrangements, or waste his energy and time. Especially when he lacked time the most now. Chu Yang actually only had a hazy guess in his heart when he discovered that Emo Qingwu's Wind Fox seemed to be very interested in him by chance. Because other than Emo Qingwu, the Wind Fox was dismissive of everyone else. However, she was somewhat different when she was with Chu Yang. She wasn't disdainful like she was with other people, and she wasn't close to him like she was with Emo Qingwu. Every time she saw him, she would circle around him a few times full of suspicion. Then it would walk away, suspiciously, but after a while, it would circle around him a few times again. The situation was very strange. At that time, Chu Yang felt that it was very likely that there was something about him that could attract the Wind Fox. But at that time, all his treasures were habitually placed in the tribulation space. The Wind Fox definitely could not smell them. So, what was it that attracted it? This also became a mystery in Chu Yang's heart. However, after entering the Spirit Beast game field this time, Chu Yang found the same situation again. It made him think that there must be something special about him, maybe it was a technique or an aura or a treasure. In any case, there was an unknown object that could sense the Spirit Beast. In order to confirm his target, Chu Yang had been changing his techniques these few days. Every day he would bring a different treasure with him to experiment and test. On the one hand, he was constantly throwing money to create the image of a sucker so that others would lower their guard. On the other hand, once he figured out a mystery, he could immediately gamble, and win big. But in these few days the effect was not obvious. Chu Yang did not give up on this and continued to test. Master Zhen? When Chu Yang was about to leave the Spirit Beast game field, the staff who had been gambling with him these few days looked at him cautiously, hesitating to speak. Chapter 1745. What's the matter? Chu Yang asked. It's like this. This person's name was He. Even though his name was unsophisticated, he had been in this Spirit Beast gambling house for 7 or 8 years. He had a lot of experience. Seeing that Chu Yang was not depressed because of losing money, he couldn't help but feel excited. He said, Master Zhen, for a rich guest like you, betting on other people's Spirit Beasts is a bit of a loss. Other people's things are still other people's. How can it be more familiar with your own things? What do you mean? Chu Yang was suddenly interested. He chuckled, revealing a mouthful of uneven yellow teeth. He said, It's like this. Normally, wealthy people all have their own Spirit Beasts and often more than one. And such Spirit Beasts, as long as they go through a certain amount of training, or unearth their innate offensive abilities, then they can transform into money trees and treasure basins with just a shake of their body. In addition to having an extremely high chance of winning, in order to match the weight of high-level beasts, our casino will not put the battle between them in this hall that is open to everyone. Instead, it will be set up in another separate venue. That place is the paradise of high-level gamblers. The stakes are extremely high, unlike here where there is a limit, or something like that. Of course, if the bet is bad and they lose, it is not something that ordinary people can afford to play. Of course, this does not include a rich guest like you, Master Zhen. Chu Yang frowned. He said, Do you think I don't know this? But where do I have the time and energy to catch those Spirit Beasts? Besides, with my strength, even if I could catch them, their strength would not be high. In a high-level Spirit Beast gambling house, I would just be delivering food to them. Losing some money is a small matter, but the time, energy and effort wasted is not worth it. He smiled and said, Haha, Master Zhen has just come to this place, so there are some things you don't know. As long as you have the heart, there is no need for you to catch them personally. You can go to the Spirit Beast market to buy them, or young ones. Or some adult Spirit Beast. Most of the time, some precious Spirit Beasts were buried in the trading area. As long as one was discerning enough, one could dig them out, keep them for oneself, or resell them. That would be a considerable amount of wealth. Of course, you will naturally not care about that small amount of money. Chu Yang's eyes lit up. So there's such a thing. He rubbed his chin and thought to himself, this is a way to open up a new path, a pretty good one. However, what part of my body can attract Spirit Beast? However, he was still uncertain about this. If he couldn't figure this out, then he would have to be careful. Their chances of winning were still slim. Deep in thought, he slowly walked out of the game arena. He was really lucky these days. Just the reward money he received from Chu Yang alone exceeded 100,000 water cloud coins. And this was under the circumstance that Chu Yang had been losing. If this big brother won, how much would he get as a reward? This was also one of the main reasons why he reminded Chu Yang today. Who wouldn't want more money? Otherwise, do you think the staff of the casino would be so kind? When Chu Yang returned to the men's hall, the sky had just begun to brighten. As soon as he returned to his room and pushed the door open, he was stunned. Because in his room, an old man was sitting upright on Chu Yang's chair. He was watching Chu Yang enter. Unexpectedly, he smiled warmly and said, You're here? These words were spoken very naturally. In fact, it was as if this was his own home, and Chu Yang was the one who had come to visit. Who are you? Chu Yang stared at the old man and asked in a low voice. His expression didn't reveal the slightest bit of surprise, as if this was a common occurrence. He slowly walked in and sat down opposite the old man. Since this old man was able to sneak in without anyone noticing, and had even stayed here for a long time, it meant that this person was a super expert. Facing such an expert, Chu Yang couldn't beat him. He couldn't even escape. Since he couldn't deal with him, he could only face him calmly. Any panic or loss of composure would only give the other party a reason to look down on him. That was all. The old man looked at Chu Yang. Seeing that he was able to maintain his composure in the face of such a situation, and even his eyes were as calm as usual, he couldn't help but praise, Young man, you have a good temperament. Chu Yang chuckled and said somewhat proudly, At least I won't be looked down upon in a single meeting. The old man laughed loudly and his laughter was full of praise. Chu Yang smiled and got up to make tea. He said, "Where's my companion?" "Your companion went out, and I took advantage of the situation to come in." The old man said very straightforwardly, "That fellow's cultivation is far inferior to this old man's, but if he's still here with this old man's current situation, it might be possible for me to silently enter, but staying here for a long time without being discovered is not so easy." Chu Yang immediately felt relieved. As long as there was nothing fishy going on, it was fine. Moreover, this old man's words revealed a lot of information, whether intentionally or unintentionally. It had a lot of support for the current situation. Far inferior. My current situation. Chu Yang already had some understanding in his heart. After a whole night of shouting in the casino, he spoke early. Returning to his own home, Chu Yang naturally wouldn't mistreat himself. He quickly made 2 cups of tea and gave one to the old man. Then he sat opposite the old man and took a sip of tea to moisten his throat. He said, "Since you came at this time, I presume you have something to tell me?" The old man shook his head and said with a smile, "No." "Oh." Chu Yang's face was indifferent, but he muttered in his heart. The old man's "no" was out of Chu Yang's expectations. "I've been by your side since you started the Hall of Men." The old man smiled and his eyes were deep. "Old sir, you're very considerate. How can I be so appreciated by you?" Chu Yang said in a neutral tone. "Little friend, you're a dragon among men. How can I not be cautious? There's nothing wrong with being careful." The old man laughed. At this moment, the fragrance of Qingyuan tea filled the room. The old man seemed a little surprised by the fragrance of the tea. He picked up the teacup, took a sip and closed his eyes. He said, "The tea is good and the person is even better. Little friend, there's nothing ordinary about you. You're really amazing." Chu Yang smiled reservedly and didn't say anything. The more he said, the more mistakes he would make. The less he said, the less mistakes he would make. "During this period of time, you first opened the Hall of Men to treat my illness. Then you wantonly auctioned a lot of top-quality swords and sharp blades. Then you casually took out a sky-high price of purple crystal jade essence. In these few days you changed your identity and appeared in the Spirit Beast game. You wantonly spread your wealth. Like spreading wealth, like a dandy, like a prodigal, like a prodigal. Don't say it lightly." The old man said lightly, and his finger gently turned the teacup. His tone seemed casual, but he completely exposed Chu Yang's whereabouts in these few days. He didn't leave out any details. Chu Yang maintained a faint smile on his face as he listened quietly. His expression didn't change at all. It was as if what the old man said had nothing to do with him. "I've been keeping track of your whereabouts. I've been observing you." The old man looked at Chu Yang. When he saw that Chu Yang was actually so calm, he couldn't help but add this sentence to show his superiority as if everything was under his control. "Yes, what you said is absolutely correct. But so what? Did I violate the local laws? Did I interfere with anyone's normal life?" Chu Yang quietly raised his head. "That's not true." "Well, you..." The old man showed a surprised expression for the first time. He really didn't expect Chu Yang to suddenly ask such a question. It seemed reasonable, but in fact, it was completely unrelated to the situation in front of him. "Aren't you surprised?" The old man was really surprised. Obviously he had lost his "everything is under his control" aura. "Of course I'm surprised." Chu Yang quietly looked at the old man. Suddenly a sly smile appeared on his face. "But why should I let you see my surprise? Right now I only see your surprise. Isn't this a very good thing?" The old man stared and then laughed. "So small. Now I already know all your secrets. What do you want to do to me?" The old man smiled, but his eyes revealed a blade-like light. His awe-inspiring aura was not revealed, but it was real. "I really want to kill you to silence you," Chu Yang honestly said, "but unfortunately I'm not your opponent. Acting rashly is equivalent to suicide. I haven't lived long enough. I can only choose to give up." "Ha ha ha." The old man held his belly and laughed. As he laughed, he suddenly coughed violently. His face was flushed and he almost couldn't breathe. He coughed like this for a long time. Then he took out a white silk handkerchief from his bosom and covered his mouth. When he took his hand away, there were a few more red blood stains on the white silk handkerchief. Chu Yang had been watching calmly. His eyes were like a ball of ice and snow that never changed. There was no sympathy, no pity, and no concern. Naturally, he didn't try to curry favor. With this old man's cultivation, he had long reached the point where he didn't need anyone's sympathy, and he didn't need Chu Yang's attentions. Chu Yang only knew that this person must have his reasons for coming to find him. Now, he just quietly waited for the old man to say his own purpose. Although, Chuyang himself had already guessed most of this purpose. You're very good. Whether it's your will or your means, they're all first class. The old man put away the silk handkerchief and said somewhat emotionally. Chuyang calmly said, I don't deserve it. Elder, you're too kind. Haha. The old man smiled bitterly and said lightly, do you still remember which restaurant you ate and dined in when you first came? Chuyang asked. I'm the big boss of that restaurant. The old man smiled lightly, reporting to everyone a piece of good news. I didn't want to say it at first, but I really couldn't help but be excited. After continuous treatment every day for several months, the cervical and lumbar vertebrae are now infinitely close to the level of a normal person. Haha, the old man said that as long as there's no strenuous exercise after a period of rest, it's basically equivalent to 18. Damn, I'll be 18 in the future. Chapter 1746. Chuyang was taken aback. With this old man's cultivation, how could he open such a restaurant? The saber that day was actually auctioned off by the accountant and I got quite a lot of money. The old man's interest waned. Of course, I don't care about that anymore. And I don't need a heaven-grade saber. When the old man said the words heaven-grade saber, there was a hint of disdain in his tone. Chuyang just listened, his expression unchanged. He thought to himself, even a heaven-grade weapon is not important? Is the person in front of me a legendary saint expert? The old man continued, it's just that you came back to pay the debt later, which made me interested. That's why I asked people to check on you. I wanted to lend you a hand at some point. The old man smiled and asked, do you know why? I believe you have some doubts, right? Chuyang pondered for a while and said, we don't know each other. Moreover, I ate your free meal. Even if I went to make up for the money afterwards and surprised you, we would only be in a situation where we are even. But you want to help me even more. This can only be said that you have your own persistence. I'm afraid that you think you owe me a favor for that saber. Although I didn't mean to do it that day, as long as I go back to pay the debt, you won't feel comfortable, right? Because, for an expert like you, the most taboo thing is to owe someone a favor. Whether it's intentional or not, a debt is a debt. Chuyang smiled as he analyzed in a clear manner. That's right. The old man clapped his hands and smiled. I originally wanted to help you silently when you were in trouble. I believe that there are few problems in this area that I can't solve. In the future we won't owe each other anything and I'll be at ease. You may not know about it and that's the best result. But now I've taken the initiative to show up. Do you know why? Chuyang was still smiling but he didn't say anything. You're really calm little guy. I really have a whole new level of respect for you. The old man praised and said, you guessed right. I've shown up this time because I have something to ask of you. Chuyang didn't say anything. But the old man already knew that Chuyang was completely aware of his intentions. Sometimes, not saying anything was more effective and charming than saying a lot of things. Let's change a trendy phrase. It was just cool. Chuyang was still smiling but he still didn't speak. This old man has been observing you for several nights. Together, you cured a patient with this old man's illness. This old man has some experience in the field of medicine, or perhaps in the field of medicine after a long period of illness. As for that person, this old man has carefully examined each and every one of them. In this old man's opinion, they are all incurable diseases. But this incurable disease can be cured in the hands of little friend. The old man said in a serious voice, such medical skills. This old man admits that he has never seen anything like this in his life. He is truly exceptional. Chuyang finally opened his mouth. However, this sentence made the old man so angry that he almost went berserk. Old sir, are you also? I have an illness? Was there something that was hard to say? You wish to seek medical treatment from me? You little bastard. The old man was originally calm. After saying that, he was so angry that his hair stood on end. An extremely powerful aura burst out from his body. Chuyang was already on guard. But this aura came too quickly and too fiercely. There was no room for him to react at all. His whole body immediately leaned back, and with a crack, the chair under his buttocks instantly shattered to the ground. He actually crushed a chair into smithereens just by relying on his aura. Wasn't this too domineering? One must know that this was the heavenly imperial court that restricted all martial artists. In such a situation, it seemed that even if Fishy went all out, he would absolutely not be able to do it. Very obviously, this old man's strength was definitely far above Fishy's. The gap between the two of them was quite big. Chuyang patted his buttocks and stood up. He smiled faintly and said, Old Sir's cultivation is so terrifying. Today, little Kiki has really broadened her horizons. After the old man's aura burst out, he hurriedly took a few deep breaths. His face suddenly turned red again and then he coughed violently. This time he actually coughed for almost an hour. His whole body trembled like a sieve, like a candle in the wind, as if it would be extinguished at any time. Chu Yang even had a very subtle but very real feeling. When this old man coughed the most, if he were to make a move, the old man might not even have the strength to fight back. What kind of injury could cause such a peerless expert to fall into such a state? As long as I circulate my energy, it will be like this. After he finally stopped coughing, the old man was somewhat dispirited and disheartened. He sighed sadly. I have already lived through this kind of life that is worse than death for a whole 300 years, Chu Yang said calmly. It's really not easy. Since you can treat my illness so easily, your medical skills are obviously extraordinary. Then do you have a way to treat my injury? The old man's eyes revealed a strong sense of hope. Chu Yang was silent for a moment. He did not directly answer and said, Old sir, what is your name? The old man's eyes revealed a look of appreciation again. Just this one sentence was enough to tell. Chu Yang was a man of principle. He did not treat just anyone. Back then I was known as the Invincible Saber. At the mention of his old name, the old man suddenly straightened his body and a mighty aura was emitted. My name is Duan Sankong. Invincible Saber Duan Sankong? Chu Yang repeated in a murmur. He shook his head and said apologetically, I'm sorry. I've never heard of this name. Duan Sankong stared at Chu Yang and suddenly felt that he had punched cotton. For a moment he was so aggrieved that his chest almost felt stuffy. Where did such a freak come from? Even if you don't have knowledge, you should at least have some basic knowledge. Even if you don't have basic knowledge, you should at least have some common sense. Back then I shocked the world and my name shook the world. Who doesn't know my name? This guy actually looks blank. Don't tell me he thinks I'm bragging. He actually said, I've never heard of it, so bluntly. How could Duan Sankong, who was waiting for others to kowtow to him, endure this? Duan Sankong originally thought that once he said his name, this little guy in front of him would immediately say, Wow. So it's you. I've heard so much about you. Hearing about you is not as good as meeting you in person. Meeting you in person is even better than hearing about you. It's my honor to meet you today. Please accept my kowtow. And so on and so forth. Who would have thought that this guy would directly say, I've never heard of it? For a moment he couldn't help but feel sick as if he had eaten feces. However, he couldn't get angry. Why would he get angry when he said he had never heard of him? Are you very famous? Although old man Duan was indeed very famous back then, cough cough cough. Duan Sankong was tongue-tied for a while and couldn't help but cough again. This time it wasn't because of his injury. It was because he was coughing to cover up his embarrassment. It seemed that the most embarrassing thing in this world was, when you thought you were someone important, you realized that you were not even worth a fart in other people's eyes. Chu Yang looked at Duan Sankong innocently and said seriously, I've really never heard of it. It's probably because I'm ignorant that I don't know your name. Don't say any more. You don't need a saber to kill people. Just a sentence is enough. Duan Sankong raised his hand sadly and stopped Chu Yang from continuing. He sighed deeply and said, Sigh, if my old friends hear this sentence they might laugh out loud. Maybe someone will laugh himself to death. This old man has lost a lot of face today. Chu Yang nodded and laughed in his heart. Invincible Saber Duan Sankong. Although Chu Yang had never heard of this name, he knew that it must be a very famous existence. Otherwise this old guy wouldn't be so arrogant. But now that you have a favor to ask of me, you still dare to be so arrogant? So arrogant, do you think you're better than others? Don't say that I've never heard of it. Even if I've heard of it, I still have to say so. If I don't attack you, who should I attack? I just can't bear to see others being arrogant in front of me. You're here to seek treatment and you still dare to be arrogant? You're rebelling. Please extend your hand. I'll take a look at your illness. I can only give a conclusion after I've seen the symptoms. Chu Yang took up the posture of a divine doctor and instructed him. As the saying goes, the other goes up. At this moment, the other party was already like a wilted cigar. Of course, Chu Yang had to take advantage of the situation. At this moment, the initiative had completely changed hands. Duan Sankong sighed and extended his hand, rolling his eyes. This moment was really boring. Ah! Chu Yang exclaimed. As the sword spirit probed with his divine soul, Chu Yang was really shocked. Because the sword spirit's probing instantly went in and he was almost injured. In Duan Sankong's internal organs, There was actually a stream of saber energy running back and forth like a dragon, circling back and forth. Duan Sankong's pure cultivation was constantly repairing his internal organs, while that stream of saber energy was constantly destroying them. Constant destruction, and this kind of injury had actually persisted for 300 years. Chu Yang had to admit that he was impressed. Even if it was Chu Yang himself, if he had such injuries, he knew that he wouldn't be able to live for long. But this Duan Sankong in front of him had actually survived and struggled for 300 years, and could even use his own cultivation to move. Of course, he couldn't destroy that stream of saber energy, but that stream of saber energy couldn't really kill him either. What a terrifying cultivation. What an exquisite cultivation. But such a situation couldn't be maintained forever, because Duan Sankong obviously couldn't suppress that stream of saber energy forever. If there came a day when Duan Sankong couldn't suppress that stream of saber energy anymore, this stream of saber energy would instantly explode and turn his internal organs into powder. Then, after crushing all his vitality, it would break out of his body and fly away. There's actually such an expert in the world. A stream of saber energy staying in someone's body for 300 years? Who did this? Chu Yang's face was solemn. How did you get injured that day? Duan Sankong sighed bleakly and said, when I achieved great success in my saber skills, I actually didn't encounter any defeats in the world for more than 1,000 years. I became more and more arrogant, thinking that all the saber masters in the world are nothing more than this. Cough, let me tell you, it turns out that you need to pay for likes. Cough cough, I'm embarrassed about this. Brothers and sisters, do what you can and don't force yourself. I always thought that it's free. So, today a brother came to scold me. I'm very ashamed. The subscription is already very good, but it seems that I've asked for too much. Ha. Everyone do what you can and don't force yourself. I hope that you'll be by my side, but I don't want you to be poor because of me. I want to be happy with all of you. Happy together. Chapter 1747. Duan Sankong said in a low voice, finally one day I was crowned with the title of Invincible Saber, which means that my saber is the best in the world. I was complacent for a moment and my mind was in a daze. I actually thought that there was nothing wrong with it. But I didn't know that I had angered someone. Duan Sankong sighed as if he couldn't bear to look back. Oh. Chu Yang asked. Lu Yongxiang. Duan Sankong smiled bitterly. It's a very ordinary name, but it's extremely powerful. His nickname was Infinite Invincible Saber. After hearing my nickname, he said disdainfully, a frog at the bottom of a well who doesn't know the vastness of the Milky Way, how dare he call himself the Invincible Saber? When this old man heard these words, I was furious and traveled thousands of miles to challenge him. I also spread the word that whoever loses will automatically remove the 2 words Invincible Saber from his title. So it was a battle of fame, a battle of loyalty, and a tragedy for martial artists. Chu Yang sighed. This kind of thing happened too often. The heavens were like this and so were the heavens. In life, who didn't want to be famous? However, some people would pay a heavy price for the sake of being famous. Could be life or life. Duan Sankong in front of him was obviously the latter. And the injury he suffered was indescribable. Because he was the one who took the initiative to challenge Chu Yang, he deserved it. After we met that day, Lu Yongxiang said, I didn't want to fight with you, but for the sake of the 2 words Invincible Saber, I'll only slash you once. If you can take it, I'll acknowledge your position. At that time I was very arrogant and said, if I can't take your slash, I'll die here because I'm not as good as you. But if you die in my hands, don't blame me. After I said this, I clearly felt that Lu Yongxiang wanted to kill me. At this time Lu Yongxiang's wife said, if you can avoid killing, it's better not to kill. After all, it's a life. Lu Yongxiang said, okay, since you said so, I'll spare his life. After he finished speaking, he maintained his sitting posture and casually swung his saber. After the saber strike, he immediately withdrew his hand and said, go back. Come find me after you've dissolved the saber chi. If you can't even deal with my blade energy, then nah. You'll only be courting death if you come again. After that, the couple swayed and disappeared without a trace. At that time there were many people watching the fight. I stood there for a while and felt uncomfortable. I was about to laugh and say that Lu Yongxiang was only a so-so. He had an undeserved reputation, but in an instant his internal organs were pierced by the saber chi, and he vomited blood on the spot. It turned out that that light slash had penetrated my internal organs with its sharp blade aura. I actually didn't have the slightest idea of such a divine skill. How frightening. Duan Sankong smiled bitterly. Back then, I thought that my saber technique had reached an invincible level, but I didn't expect that I couldn't even block a light saber strike from someone else. Moreover, the result of this slash was bitter. He actually allowed me to taste it until now. Over 300 years. With more than 300 years of pain, more than 300 years of living a life worse than death. To repay my frivolity and arrogance back then? Ah. Chu Yang sucked in a breath of cold air and asked, that cultivation level of yours was probably at the cultivation level of a saint. Duan Sankong revealed a look of reminiscence and said, that cultivation level of mine was at the lower level of the saint position. Chu Yang frowned. Low level of the saint position, he could be said to be a peerless expert. Even in this heaven imperial court he could be considered a hero. However, he was imprisoned and tortured for 300 years by the infinite invincible saber Lu Yongxiang. How high was that Lu Yongxiang, the peerless blade of the infinite, actually? Wait. Chu Yang frowned tightly and murmured, this infinite invincible saber Lu Yongxiang, why do I feel like I've heard of this name before? Duan Sankong smiled bitterly and said, the infinite invincible saber Lu Yongxiang's name shook the world. He's also one of the few super powerful people in the world who never attached himself to any forces. There are countless legends about him in the Heaven Imperial Court. He's indeed an existence that can't be mentioned in the same breath as me. It's not surprising that you've heard of him. His seemingly calm voice was mixed with a little bit of jealousy. Sai, you've heard of Lu Yongxiang but you've never heard of me? This little bastard, is he trying to disgust me to death? Well, I'm afraid you've misunderstood. I really didn't mean that. In fact, I'm just a newcomer who just ascended. I know very little about the famous people in the Heaven Imperial Court. No matter how legendary they are, they're indeed very unfamiliar to me. The person you mentioned just now may not be the person I know. Chu Yang pondered and asked, may I ask, what are the specific characters of this Lu Yongxiang? Dao Lu Yong Yong Xiang Ji, Duan Sankong said. Chu Yang frowned and pondered. Finally, he clapped his hands and said, I remember now. I've actually heard of it there. Fortunately, my brain is still functional. What did you think of? Could it be that you know the infinite invincible saber? Duan Sankong was nervous. He really had a heartfelt fear of the infinite invincible saber, and even began to fear it. He was afraid of everything that was related to it. Back then, that godlike saber strike had almost shattered his confidence. Chu Yang didn't open his mouth to speak. Instead, he had a nostalgic look on his face. He had fallen into a long-lost memory. He remembered that one day his master Meng Chaoran told Tan Tan and ZJ about the legendary people in the Heaven Imperial Court. Meng Chaoran said this. For tens of thousands of years, there are countless legends in the Heaven Imperial Court. However, there are only a few people who are at the peak of the legends. The rest of them are very powerful. Ordinary people can only look up to them, but they're not at the level of real powerful people. Meng Chaoran first listed Feng Yu, Bu Luqing, Ning Tianya and others. Then he started to trace back to the legends from a long time ago. Supreme Martial Artist Qin Feng and Supreme Martial Artist Lu Yun are naturally legends from a long time ago. But before them, there's another legendary classic person. Speaking of this, Meng Chaoran hesitated for a while and said, the person who wrote this classic is very strange. The records prove that he was before or after Qin Feng. In short, the records about him are all vague. At that time, Chu Yang asked, who is that person? Even if the records are vague, there should be a name, right? Meng Chaoran said, this person is the ultimate invincible blade. Lu Yongxiang. Chu Yang's memory was slightly different from the reality in front of him. This was because he clearly remembered that the Lu Yongxiang that his master Meng Chaoran mentioned was actually Lu Yongxiang. It wasn't Dao Lu. Could it be that these two people are actually two different people, and it's just a coincidence that their names are similar? But why are they both nicknamed the ultimate invincible blade? If it's just a coincidence, isn't it too much of a coincidence? Are they the same person? At that time, Meng Chaoran once said, this ultimate invincible blade has no limit. The blade has no limit. The person has no limit. The power has no limit. The future has no limit. The blade is the best in the world. The blade technique is the best in the world. The body of the blade is the best in the world. The aura of the blade is the best in the world. This is the invincible blade. Therefore, it's called the ultimate invincible blade. This person's whereabouts are the most erratic, and it's hard to track him down. Many of the glorious records that he left behind have been buried in the wind with the passage of time. However, people call him the living martial saint. This was what Meng Chaoran said back then. However, Chuyang had never met this person when he was conquering the heaven-level continent, and he had never heard of anything related to this person. If he hadn't heard this name again today, perhaps this name would have been buried in Chuyang's memory forever. However, who would have thought that after coming to the heaven-level imperial court, he would unexpectedly hear this name again, and it triggered a long-lost memory. Chuyang was thinking now. If it's the same person, does the so-called living martial saint refer to the martial saint of the heaven-level continent? Or the martial saint of the heaven-level imperial court? Martial saint? The last one, Chuyang felt that it wasn't that big of a deal. It seemed a little too exaggerated. However, the martial saint of the heaven-level continent seemed to be incomparable to the two ultimate experts of the heaven-level continent, Qin Feng and Lu Yun. The difference was too big. However, even if it was the martial saint of the heaven-level imperial court, this senior strength had also reached a considerable height. Moreover, this invincible blade, Duan Sankong in front of him was a low-grade martial saint before he fought with Lu Yongxiang. Since this invincible blade was so relaxed and happy, seemingly casually slashing out with his blade while sitting down, and had troubled Duan Sankong for 300 years, and even had the possibility of trapping him until he died, his strength should at least be at the high-grade martial saint level. Or perhaps he was at the pinnacle level. And this cultivation was 300 years ago. After 300 years, perhaps he had broken through the limits of the martial saint level and reached the heavenly man level. It turns out that I have such an awesome fellow from the same hometown. What a surprise. Chuyang muttered to himself. What surprised me even more is that this fellow from the same hometown is similar to me. He also has a wife. Your fellow from the same hometown? You're saying that the invincible blade is your fellow from the same hometown as you? Duan Sankong's face darkened. Yes, there should be. But I can't be sure now. Maybe it's Feng Jing and Ma Yang. Chuyang nodded. Let's take a look at your old injury first. Today's main topic shouldn't be that invincible blade, right? How is it? Can it still be treated? Duan Sankong was instantly shocked. His attention was drawn back, and his tone of inquiry couldn't hide the hidden hope in it. The old man was more or less a little embarrassed. ZJ's original intention of paying attention to this little one was to compensate him a little, and then maintain ZJ's true colors as an otherworldly expert, disappearing without a trace. He wanted to experience the secret pleasure of leaving with a flick of his sleeves, hiding his identity and name. However, as matters stood, the tone had completely changed. Chapter 1748. Because when ZJ noticed this, he was quite surprised to find that this little guy actually had a lot of skills. After looking at it day by day, he couldn't stop himself. In the end, he even wanted to help him, but now he was asking for help. This seemed to be very different from ZJ's original intention. They were two completely different things. Cure. It can be cured. Chu Yang's first sentence immediately made Duan Sankong overjoyed. He couldn't help but be overjoyed. Duan Sankong was a saint-level expert and had countless means to treat a knife wound that couldn't be cured even after 300 years. The difficulty of treating it was imaginable. Even asking for Chu Yang's help wasn't a desperate attempt. How could he not be overjoyed when he suddenly heard that it could be cured? It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he was wild with joy. Then Chuyang changed the topic and said, however, I'll say this first. Firstly, this treatment will take a long time. It's an old injury that can't be cured in a short period of time. Duan Sankong hurriedly interrupted. It's not a problem as long as it can be cured, Chuyang said. Secondly, because we have to gradually dissolve that mysterious knife energy, we need some corresponding medicines. These corresponding medicines? I'll raise all the money. Duan Sankong interrupted Chuyang again. Novel chapters are updated the fastest. This damn knife energy had tortured him for more than 300 years. No matter how many famous doctors in the world had inquired about it, they were all helpless. Now that he heard that it could be cured, Duan Sankong naturally wanted to cure it at all costs, even if he had to go bankrupt. Chuyang pondered for a moment and said, also there's a certain risk in treating it. If I want to cure it completely, I'm at most 70% sure. Moreover, even if I have all the necessary medicines, it'll take at least 3 months of treatment. It'll be even shorter. Are you afraid of such a small risk? Duan Sankong said somewhat anxiously. No, you're at least 70% sure. Even if it's only 10%, I'll still take the risk. The treatment will only take 3 months? That's really too short. I thought it'd take 3 years or even longer. The heavens pity me. At this moment, Duan Sankong was so excited that he was somewhat incoherent. Chu Yang smiled gently. He very much understood Duan Sankong's feelings at this moment. To be honest, no matter how calm a person was, after being tortured like this for more than 300 years, when faced with a sudden opportunity to escape, how could they not be excited? Therefore, Chu Yang, who had always been narrow-minded, was very magnanimous this time. Master Duan's last sentence clearly said that he wanted to rely on Chu Yang for treatment. What did it have to do with Master Duan? If he really cares for you, why didn't you get better earlier? How much money do you need specifically? Or a heaven and earth treasure? Duan Sankong was obviously impatient. Duan Sankong did not want to hold back any longer when he thought of the infinite pleasure of being able to roam the world alone with his saber and the suffocation of hiding in this small city for more than 300 years. Ever since he was injured, he had tried to escape as far as possible. Back then he was arrogant and frivolous and he did not give face to anyone. The number of enemies he had made was truly a lot. If those people were to be reduced to such a state, and if they were to find out about his whereabouts, Wuxia City would most likely be flattened in a single night. The required medicinal herbs need elixirs. Chu Yang calculated and said, elixirs? Duan Sankong was at a loss. Although he had been ill for a long time, he was still not a real doctor and he was still not familiar with certain medical terms. The so-called elixirs are top-grade elixirs, including wholehearted snow lotus, two-headed purple mist flower, three-flavored rose root, four-sided drifting grass, 5 elements bitter gourd vine, horn white fleece flower, 7-colored poisonous blood fruit, 8 three-headed flower, and resurrection grass. Chu Yang thought for a while, and then he listed them out without any reservation. I have all the other supplementary medicinal herbs here, but the elixir that makes up the main ingredient is really precious, and I also have it here. I need this miraculous medicinal herb to synthesize the shattering medicine. Only this shattering medicine has the greatest chance of shattering the saber energy in your body, once and for all. Duan Sankong's expression was very interesting. In fact, as Chu Yang listed out the medicinal herbs, Duan Sankong's expression became more and more unsightly. These medicinal herbs were not all heavenly treasures. Even the wholehearted snow lotus, double-headed purple mist flower, 4 directions drifting grass, and 8 three-headed flower were relatively common medicinal herbs, and could be bought in a slightly bigger medicine shop. The 3-flavored rose root and 5 elements bitter gourd vine were relatively precious, but they were not that rare. As long as one was willing to pay, one could also get them. However, the remaining horn fleece flower and 7-colored poisonous blood fruit were genuine treasures. They were heavenly materials and earthly treasures, and very rare ones at that. If that was the case, Duan Sankong was still confident that he could collect them all. The last resurrection grass. Even someone like Duan Sankong, who had lived for a long time, however, he had only seen it once. At that time, it was auctioned at a sky-high price. If he really wanted to collect all the medicinal herbs, including the resurrection grass, he was afraid that all the wealth that he had accumulated over the past tens of thousands of years, as well as the worldly income of the past 300 years, would be completely wasted. He would definitely go bankrupt and everything would have to start from scratch. Do we really need these medicinal herbs? Can't they be replaced? Duan Sankong asked with a pale face. Returning to one, shattering the void, both are indispensable. Chu Yang's attitude was very firm, and his expression was as cold as snow. There was no room for negotiation. All right, I'll bet on this. Duan Sankong's face turned gloomy and he said, I'll immediately issue a task to buy them at a high price. This time it's really... I've worked hard for tens of thousands of years, and I've become a pauper overnight. Chu Yang kindly reminded him, as long as your injuries are healed. Do you want me to kill you? You're right, as long as your injuries are healed, I want you to kill me. Duan Sankong was shocked and he said, I'll immediately go and get you to kill you. Duan Sankong immediately did as he said and he turned around to leave. When he reached the door, the old man stopped and turned back to confirm again, Little one, are you really 70% sure? Chu Yang didn't reply. Instead, he calculated in his heart and said, If you can find all the ingredients, I'm confident that I'll be able to succeed. Of course, the prerequisite is that those medicinal herbs must be of good quality at least 70% sure. This was basically equivalent to saying that he was 100% sure. What made old Master Duan feel confident was that Chu Yang added another sentence. If you find out that you've been deceived, do you think that with my current cultivation I'll be able to escape from your pursuit? Will there be any benefits for me to deceive you? At this point, Duan Sankong no longer hesitated, and disappeared like a whirlwind. He was like a galloping horse with its butt on fire. If he was at least 70% sure, why would he wait? What's more, what this guy said did make sense. With his strength, ZJ could crush thousands of people with a single finger. He could even blow him to pieces with a single breath. After Duan Sankong left, Chu Yang waited silently for a while, and finally revealed a trace of a victorious smile on his lips. Then, he dipped his hand into the tea, and unconsciously drew a few pictures on the table. 5 words seemed to have dried up after a while on the table. That was the resurrection grass. Yes, it was that thing. The key to Wu Qianqian's awakening. Chu Yang had inquired many times, and many people knew that the resurrection grass was undoubtedly a top-grade heavenly treasure. With his current financial resources, he definitely couldn't afford it. Even if he was lucky enough to buy it, he wouldn't be able to keep it. As for Duan Sankong's saber wound, it indeed needed this medicinal herb to cure it. From this point alone, Chu Yang wasn't too surprised. However, Chu Yang didn't say that the prescription was complete. It was just that the amount of medicinal herbs used was slightly off. The actual amount of medicinal herbs was as follows: 1 heart snow lotus, 1 2-headed purple mist flower, 1 3-flavored rose root, 3 grams, 4 pieces of 4 directions drifting grass, 1 5 elements bitter gourd vine, 1 piece of white horn fleece flower, 1 7 colors poisonous blood fruit, 1 3-headed flower. And the resurrection grass, 1. In other words, 1 stalk of resurrection grass with at least a dozen leaves was enough. In other words, 1 stalk of grass was enough to cure Duan Sankong. However, a certain someone would never state the specific dosage of the medicine. Because the difficulty of getting 1 stalk of resurrection grass and 1 stalk of resurrection grass were about the same. The only difference was the price. There was indeed a slight difference, but it was only a difference of 3 to 7 times. Since that was the case, the more the better. If there were too many left over, in order to avoid wastage, this divine doctor would fill his own pockets. Duan Sankong was just about to leave when Shifu Niao came back. Seeing Duan Sankong leaving hurriedly from afar, Shifu Niao stepped forward and looked back suspiciously at Duan Sankong's back. He asked curiously, "Was that white-bearded old man also here to treat my illness? What the heck, he's already so old but he still has that kind of problem. A young man must be very strong." Pfft. Chu Yang spat out a mouthful of tea on Shifu Niao's beard and coughed repeatedly. Duan Sankong, who was far away, staggered and almost fell to the ground. With this old master's cultivation, any movement could be hidden from his eyes and ears. But Shifu Niao believed that Shifu Niao would rather keep his eyes and ears clear. This damn cat. The old man cursed in his heart. When I recover, I'll pluck all the fur off this damn cat. I'll show you who's the real strong one. Let's go, Shifu Niao. Chu Yang stood up abruptly. Let's go to the spirit beast trading market. Chapter 1749. Cat Sensei was stunned. Brother, are you really going to do something big? Let me tell you, you can't get addicted to gambling. Once you fall in, you can go bankrupt at any time. Chu Yang didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Don't worry, you won't fall in. Let's just walk around and see if there are any suitable spirit beasts. Let's each get one. Just treat it as a companion. Teacher Cat frowned. He obviously didn't believe Chu Yang's words. He said reluctantly, "You have to be careful. Go ahead, I won't be going." As he spoke, he sat down with a sullen expression. What's the matter? Chu Yang suddenly felt that something was wrong. What was it that made this cat teacher so gloomy? This guy had always been a heartless person. Nothing. Teacher Cat sighed. He wanted to say something but stopped. Finally, he waved his hand and said, "You can go walk around." Then he turned and went into his room. He even closed the door with a bang. Chu Yang rubbed his nose, feeling a little confused. He didn't know how to react at all. Finally, he turned and left. Teacher Cat seemed to have something to do. But it shouldn't be something urgent. It wouldn't be too late to come back at night to interrogate him. The matter over there was more important. The Spirit Beast Trading Center should be more convenient than the gambling center. Success or failure depended on this. Chu Yang was determined to dig out the secret today. "Sir, are you here to choose a spirit beast?" "Sir, are you planning to rent or buy?" "What? Great. You can choose whatever you want. I have the most complete collection here. I have a complete and strong team of hunters. Do you want adult spirit beasts or young spirit beasts?" "Let's take a look first. This way, please. Oh right, do you want a flying spirit beast or a fighting spirit beast? Or a supporting spirit beast? Or a riding spirit beast? I have poisonous spirit beasts? I want one that can shut you up. Do you have one? Chuyang slowly walked over. He couldn't help but feel a little dazzled. There were simply too many types of spirit beasts here. There were too many of them that Chuyang had never seen before. Buddy, you go greet the others first. I'll call you if I need you. Chuyang casually tossed out a purple soul coin. Thank you for your reward, sir. That person left happily. I met a rich man, haha. Shi immediately quieted down. Chuyang looked at this person's departing figure, and couldn't help but sigh deeply. Profound level. This level of cultivation was roughly equivalent to the first to third grade of supreme martial artist in the heavenly realm. If he was in the Chongtian continent, even in the upper three heavens, such a cultivation base would not be enough. He could also be considered a top-notch figure. Even if they couldn't dominate a region, they would at least be famous. However, in this Heaven Imperial Court, he was just a shop assistant who sold spiritual beasts. He even looked like he was enjoying it. He had the demeanor of a strong man, and the pride of a strong man. For the sake of a single purple soul coin, they actually cheered happily and left satisfied. And he even had a fawning look on his face? Chuyang really didn't know what was going on with this person. Or was this really natural selection, and the survival of the fittest? It had always been people adapting to the environment. It was very difficult for the environment to adapt to someone. Seeing that the shop assistant had left, Chuyang squatted down. In front of him there was a row of small cages. Inside there were fire foxes whose skin was as red as blood. On the other side there were small wolves with golden skin. These two species were young beasts, and looked like they were only 2 to 3 months old. All of them were petite. They looked very young. In other words, they were very cute. However, Chuyang didn't dare to underestimate them. Since Nungo was being sold here, he believed that they were spirit beasts with ranks. In this Heaven Imperial Court, spirit beasts with ranks were definitely not cute. They were ferocious beasts in their bones. Chuyang pretended to be squatting on the ground to carefully examine the cub. In fact, he was silently operating the heaven-splitting divine technique, and gradually releasing his own aura. Before this, Chuyang had used all the divine techniques that he knew at least once. The heaven-layered divine technique was no exception. However, in the noisy environment of the spirit beast game field, it was really hard to make a judgment. Now was the best time to confirm. A misty fog that was hard to see with the naked eye was emitted from Chuyang's body, and entered the small cages in front of him. Squeak squeak, woo woo, the cries of the fire foxes and golden wolves sounded at the same time. The young beasts in the cages seemed to have noticed something, and stood up almost at the same time. They looked at Chuyang suspiciously as if they had discovered something but couldn't be sure. Chuyang was delighted. This kind of look was exactly the same as the look that Mo Qingwu's windfox had when it looked at Chuyang. Chuyang could even say with certainty that if these little fellows were confined in a cage and could move freely, they would have already started to circle around the city. Chuyang's heaven-layered divine technique was circulating faster and faster, and the aura that flowed out of his body was also increasing. However, at this moment, something unexpected happened. Just when Chuyang thought that the heaven-layered divine technique's aura would attract more spirit beasts' attention, these little fellows turned their heads and went to do their own things. Although they would occasionally turn their heads and look at Chuyang in confusion, the frequency was almost negligible. Chuyang immediately frowned. What was going on? Why was it like this again? Chuyang could be sure that the heaven-layered divine technique definitely had some effect, but it was due to some unknown factor that led to the current situation. However, where did the problem come from? Sword Spirit, did you discover anything this time? Chuyang asked in his consciousness. Since he couldn't figure it out, he naturally had to ask the Sword Spirit. The Sword Spirit was the expert in judging energy. Not for the time being. Let's do it again. The Sword Spirit's voice rang out. Since the first time, the two of them had started to experiment endlessly. The Sword Spirit was in charge of monitoring the inside of the tribulation space, but he couldn't figure out where this inexplicable problem came from. Chuyang retracted the heaven-layered divine technique and took a few steps forward, changing to another batch of spirit beasts. He squatted on the ground again and circulated the technique. At this time, there were also people walking around from time to time, gradually getting closer and further away. Waves of ridicule could be heard. Look at that idiot. Squatting in front of a batch of the lowest grade spirit beasts and concentrating so hard to choose. He must be an amateur. Anyone with a bit of knowledge wouldn't choose those trash. That's right. Even if he chooses a king from among them, what's the use? Aren't low-grade spirit beast kings still trash? They're still in the low-grade category. I think he's just someone who has money to burn. What an idiot. One look and I can tell that he's a professional prodigal. No vision, no knowledge, no brain, no trash. Chu Yang turned a deaf ear to all of this and wholeheartedly circulated the heaven-layered divine technique again, once again. And again, time and time again it was futile. The people in the tribulation space kept changing. Everyone who saw Chu Yang's actions had the same contempt and ridicule. Especially some of the young men with female companions. It was as if insulting other men in front of their female companions would make them look even more brilliant and powerful. They spared no effort and spoke more viciously, words that were unpleasant to the ear, accompanied by waves of bell-like laughter and pretentious pouting. It was transmitted to Chu Yang's ears again and again. Seeing that Chu Yang was about to be angered by the tribulation space's ridicule, the sword spirit cried out excitedly. Found it, found it. So that's it. So that's it. What? Found it? Chu Yang jumped up excitedly and laughed loudly. It's really found it. The few young men and women in the tribulation space were shocked by Chu Yang's huge reaction and retreated a few steps at the same time. Then they burst into laughter. Don't tell me this guy found something in that group of mountain drilling rats? Did he find the mountain drilling rat king? Even if he found the mountain drilling rat king, what's the use of it? Let me think. Alright, the meat should be more delicious. No wonder he's so excited. Ah. Haha. Most of the people who came here to pick spirit beasts were here to gamble. What's the use of picking a group of rats? No matter how strong a rat is, it's still a rat. Scram. Chu Yang stood up suddenly and shouted. The strength of a peak mortal was unleashed without reservation at this moment. The group of young men and women could only feel their ears buzzing. Only then did they realize that this fool, in front of them, was actually an expert. Their faces turned pale and they scattered like birds and beasts. Just based on this point alone, he was no different from the tribulation space. Bullying the weak and fearing the strong, there was no difference. What's going on? Hurry up and tell me. Don't make me anxious. Chu Yang asked impatiently. Actually, it's like this. The sword spirit's face was actually a little embarrassed as he said, the previous few times I've been observing the broken shits, which are the changes in the small animal's expressions. I didn't find anything at all. This time I thought that this change might be caused by the shits at the beginning, so this time I chose to observe the beginning. Shits. Beginning? What's going on? When your tribulation space divine technique starts to operate, a small crack will open in the purple cloud tower. The sword spirit smiled bitterly. From this small crack, a little bit of purple cloud spiritual energy will leak out. The demon race, or rather the spirit beasts, are especially sensitive to this purple cloud spiritual energy. They seem to have noticed this little bit of purple cloud spiritual energy, which is why they see you in a different light. Chapter 1750. Realization dawned on Chu Yang. I see. Suddenly he wanted to slap himself in the face. If he had known earlier he would have. This was such a simple matter. Did he have to put in so much effort? Why do the spirit beasts like the smell of the purple firmament tower so much? Chu Yang immediately thought of another question. I'm not sure about this. The sword spirit was a little ashamed. Chu Yang looked around and saw that there was no one around. He quietly took the purple firmament tower out of the tribulation space and put it in his arms. This purple firmament tower had once turned into a tall mountain in the upper three heavens. Its spiritual energy was dense and its status was transcendent. It was majestic and unshakable. But now in Chu Yang's hand, it was only the size of a finger. It was so small and exquisite that it looked more like a child's toy. However, the moment this toy-like purple firmament pagoda was taken out, the entire spirit beast trading market was thrown into chaos. For a moment, all the spirit beasts became restless as if they were rebelling. They shook their heads and wagged their tails, jumping up and down. It was as if doomsday had arrived and the god of death was right in front of them. The specific behavior was as follows. The wild wolf, which had been tamed for several years, suddenly bit the hand of the breeder fiercely. Then it struggled to break free from the shackles and rushed over like a madman, even though its skin and flesh were torn. The white tiger, which had been here for more than a year and had long been confirmed by the breeder to have lost its wild nature, suddenly roared fiercely. Its momentum shook the heavens and the earth, showing the might of a beast king. The earth dragon roared madly as if this was its final moment. The fire bird almost shook off all the feathers on its wings in a frenzy. Even the highly poisonous seven-colored poisonous snake was moving around impatiently. It hissed and flicked its tongue. Its originally cold-blooded eyes were now filled with impatience. The entire spirit beast trading market was instantly in chaos. It was unbelievably chaotic. All the managers were in a state of panic. In the blink of an eye, more than a dozen people were bitten and pecked by the spirit beasts. Several people were bleeding and their faces quickly turned black and purple. These people were obviously poisoned. A poison that could easily endanger their lives. But the safety preparations of the spirit beast trading market were still in place. In just a moment, many people came to help and laid out stretchers. He dragged the poisoned and injured people up and disappeared like a whirlwind. Many high-level martial artists also rushed over one after another. They went near some high-rank spirit beasts and kept suppressing them, hoping that the spirit beast's fear of formidable deterrence would calm them down. Many other waiters came over and kept apologizing to the guests and wishing them a happy new year. Anyway, you hear what's good. In short, the entire spirit beast arena fell into extreme chaos. However, no one noticed that in such a chaotic place, a super nouveau riche was the one who started all this. And this super nouveau riche was still squatting there like he was taking a dump. He was petrified. Even the service staff who were responsible for comforting the guests did not notice the petrified Chu Yang. The guests present were either panicking, angry, or even trying to take advantage of the situation. However, no one was petrified. Moreover, he was petrified in the posture of defecating. The reason why Chu Yang was so petrified was because Chu Yang really couldn't think of anything. As soon as the purple firmament pagoda was taken out, it actually had such a powerful effect. It was simply going to turn the world upside down. Some of the spirit beasts that had turned a blind eye to him suddenly regarded him as their savior. The spirit beasts who had rolled their eyes at him. Suddenly, they were as close as brothers who had been separated for 100,000 years. It turned out that it wasn't the fear of the end of the world or the fear of death. Instead, it was the excitement of suddenly feeling the most intimate and irresistible feeling and taste. The enthusiasm of this moment made Chu Yang directly stunned. It was really too unexpected. What was this situation? Looking at all the spirit beasts around him being so affectionate, even if they were separated by cages, even if their bones were broken and their claws were broken, they still wanted to squeeze over. Those pairs of eyes were surging with strong feelings that did not care about life and death. Chu Yang suddenly felt his hair stand on end. Was this the hidden mysterious power of the Purple Firmament Tower? Did the Purple Firmament Tower actually have the mysterious power to attract all the spirit beasts in the world? What exactly did the Purple Firmament Emperor leave behind? Or what did he do in the past? Or was he actually, what was he? Chu Yang held the Purple Firmament Tower in his hand again. The next moment, Chu Yang actually clearly felt that his divine sense that had been sealed by the heavenly imperial palace boundary suddenly unfolded again without any restrictions at this moment. The power of this Purple Firmament Tower could actually easily break through the divine sense seal brought about by the heavenly imperial palace without any effort. If it was just a breakthrough, it would be enough to be shocking. But what really shocked Chu Yang was that the power of the Purple Firmament Tower could break through the heavenly imperial palace boundary without any sound and without attracting anyone's attention at all. The power of this power had already completely exceeded Chu Yang's understanding. It was really too powerful. What exactly was the Purple Firmament Tower? How could he have such a mysterious and powerful thing? Chu Yang's divine sense actually enveloped the spirit beast trading market within a radius of a few hundred miles in an instant. At this moment, Chu Yang felt like a fish that had returned to the sea. That kind of freedom and comfort that he had not felt for a long time made him truly feel what it was like to be in heaven and to want to die. It was like a blind person who suddenly regained his sight. The excitement in his heart was forcibly suppressed by Chu Yang. Excitement, happiness, it was not good to overdo it. A mistake would lead to disaster. The scene before him was a clear proof. Right now, the most important thing was to find a spirit beast that could make him rich. Chu Yang immediately began to search. Chu Yang, who had recovered his divine sense, was confident that he could find the target he was looking for in an instant. But he failed. He didn't find it. It would be strange if he could find it. Chu Yang's divine sense had recovered. Nothing in the entire spirit beast trading market could hide from his senses. But this had nothing to do with the target spirit beast he was looking for. As far as his divine sense could reach, all the spirit beasts in the entire spirit beast trading market were cheering and jumping enthusiastically. Chu Yang only felt that his eyes were dazzled. He didn't know which one to choose. Sword Spirit. Chu Yang could only ask the Sword Spirit for help because he was really a little confused. The Sword Spirit also spent a lot of effort to carefully observe. He hesitated for a long time, frowned and said, "What is this? I saw it clearly just now. So I couldn't find the target. Now that I've seen it all clearly, I still can't find the target. I really don't understand. Which one is the target you want? Although each spirit beast here has a rank, it's not high enough. If you really put them on the field, the chances of winning are very small. Do you plan to make money by relying on them? It's good enough that you don't lose money." Chu Yang frowned. He walked forward and said, "Since you've seen it clearly, introduce the spirit beasts to me. This is not a problem." The spirit beasts in the Heavenly Imperial Court can be roughly divided into 4 levels: Xian, Earth, Heaven, and Saint. This classification corresponds to the martial artist's rank. Each level is divided into 3 grades, upper and lower. The Xian level is the lowest. As long as there is an Earth level spirit beast has the ability to sweep away all the spirit beasts in this Wuxia city. As for the Heaven level, it belongs to the legendary level and is relatively rare. As for the Saint level, it's a legend among legends. Even the legends say that there are only 3 to 5 of them. Moreover, no one has seen it with their own eyes. The spirit beasts here. Most of them belong to the Xian level and most of them are at the lower level. Only a small portion of them are at the Earth level, and only 2 or 3 of them are at the upper level. Moreover, they are all cubs. Such cubs need to be trained for at least 10 years before they can participate in battles. Moreover, the price to buy them is very high. Chu Yang frowned tightly. According to his experience, the auras of the spirit beasts that could dominate the spirit beast gaming field were much more powerful than the spirit beasts here. There was simply no comparison between the two. If so, then wouldn't he have come here in vain? Just as he was pondering, his eyes suddenly lit up. He saw a strange spirit beast hiding in a corner of the spirit beast transaction center. The reason why Chu Yang was interested in this spirit beast was very simple. Almost all the spirit beasts in the entire spirit beast transaction center were agitated by the aura of the purple firmament tower. But this spirit beast didn't become agitated. In fact, it even seemed to be disdainful of the aura of the purple firmament tower. It merely rolled its eyelids and then drooped them down. It continued to lie there lazily and looked half dead. Chu Yang couldn't help but be surprised when he noticed this. All the spirit beasts had gone crazy, but this guy was still indifferent? "What's wrong? Did you find something?" the sword spirit asked. Nothing. Chu Yang had already walked over with quick steps. There wasn't much time left. So Chu Yang quickly walked to the side of that strange spirit beast. Speaking of being strange, this spirit beast was indeed extremely strange. It was sloppy and slovenly. Its appearance was also very strange. It was lying there. Its entire body was 30 feet long. Its fur was brightly colored. At first glance it looked like a tiger. But it didn't have the king character on its forehead. Its tail was curled up into a ball. It wasn't drooping like a tiger's tail. Its ears were perked up and they weren't big. They were a little pointy and the look in its eyes was very strange. This animal's eyes were somewhat lazy. Although it looked very similar to a tiger, the difference in aura was too great. However, if this thing was a kitten that had been magnified hundreds of times, it seemed to be very similar to the image. But how could there be such a big cat in the world? If a cat could grow so big, then how could there be a tiger in the world? It would be better to call it a cat. The more Chu Yang looked at it, the stranger it became. This guy looked like a cat but also like a tiger. It looked like a cat but also like a tiger. He had never seen such a strange guy in his memory. What was it? You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.